your host, Keith Malinak, and we are here gathered on a Thursday afternoon, 2 p.m. Eastern. We do this every Thursday, and I appreciate you making time. It means a lot to me, whether you are joining us on YouTube, youtube.com/@themic, or over on my Twitter profile, at Keith Malinak. And there we go. I was just, you know how I am. I got to make sure we're live. I got to make sure I see it with my own eyes before I can relax. Okay. So this is part 2 of a discussion that actually started back on 4th of July, as a matter of fact. Let me turn this thing down. Hang on. Clearly, I'm still recovering from last night's epic speech by President Joe Biden, and I had some things turned up there that didn't need to be. So on July 4th, we made time for a 2-hour show, as we always do Thursdays, and we did a deep dive on how to steal an election. And that conversation ended up being 3.5 hours, and there's still plenty more to talk about, which is why we have a part 2. Please go and watch part 1 when you get a chance. That's okay. It's not like a movie sequel. You can still enjoy and get a lot out of today's conversation, and then go back and watch part 1. There's no cliffhanger there. So, but we still have questions, and we are going to get to some solutions as well on how to ensure that our vote is sacred and respected as such. But before we do that, we've got questions. I want to bring in Jovan Pulitzer. He's awesome. And I'm also going to bring in the equally awesome Eve Pita, and she's audio here. Okay, so so your audio is available to us, Eve. I don't see your logo here on the screen, so I don't know if that's something you have to activate there. But I mean, it's we're still going to hear you either way. But we appreciate you making time as well. You're an awesome researcher and contribute so much to this cause. And by the way, just a reminder that this book is a must-have. Countdown to Chaos. Silent Federalizing of Elections. It's been happening for decades. Please check out this book. There is so much information in there. And that's actually, Jovan, Eve, that's where I want to begin, because we had an interesting happening a week ago as it related to the company CrowdStrike. And we had lots of businesses and governments that were severely affected. And our way of life was challenged for a bit on Friday of last week. And the thing that had a lot of people's antennas up was the fact that CrowdStrike wasn't the first time they've heard of this company. And in fact, I counted all of the references in the index of this awesome resource of a book, Countdown to Chaos, 60 different references to CrowdStrike. Do we want to start there and kind of talk about why that company is important and should be something that we're all aware of? By the way, thanks for joining me. By the way, I'm sorry, that was a long-winded start. I apologize.
Not a problem. I'll set up Eve for this, and we'll go into some technicals. First, folks, just for low-hanging fruit, it's kind of interesting, as you saw in some of the midterms or some of the other elections going on in primaries and stuff, that you heard there were internet outages, and then all of a sudden, well, people couldn't vote at the polling places. Now, think about that just for a minute. If our machines, they swear up and down, are not connected to the internet, why would it matter if the internet went down in polling places? So you have to understand everything's about words and a clown show that they have going on. But you also have to watch, because there's the dilution effect. You always have people want to jump in and change the topic and dilute, because they don't want you to know some simple things. So first, let me just set up a few things for you. You clearly heard the voting machine companies sit in front of Congress and say, we do not make machines that connect to the internet, when everybody knows they connect to the internet. Well, in reality, they're telling the truth, because they don't make machines. They're a software company. And in their manuals, it clearly tells the counties are responsible that if they want to connect this to their network, which of course is connected to the internet, they need to do it. So you have to kind of understand how the rig goes. But CrowdStrike is very key part of this. And it is not a coincidence after the Trump assassination attempt that all of a sudden you have a massive CrowdStrike outage. So with that, let's go over to Eve. And Eve, let's talk about, well, just how deeply embedded this CrowdStrike issue is.
Yeah, and not to pull any I don't know whatever on you, but there's 60 some references in the index. There's 154 actual mentions of the word in the book. So that's 60 some pages, 150 some mentions. So no, it's very, very significant. And I mean, honestly, I think Jovan might agree with this. As we were discovering the issues with the system, it was when the name CrowdStrike came up, I think, that the antennas got the tallest. Because, it's one thing to have like a LAN, a local area network. But as soon as you created this system, cloud-based, going into New York, and then you've got CrowdStrike, we've got a system with open ports. There's 2 open ports. And now we had mentioned this last time, and this is where I think, second, this part 2, really is worthy to kind of get into the weeds here. Just to explain what the system is a little bit. Again, CrowdStrike is primarily software. And so
built on the Microsoft background and Microsoft systems, so people understand, just making it really simple. It's as ubiquitous as your desktop.
Yes, and it's very interesting too, because there's a lot of open source pieces of this thing. So you can kind of go, and we did begin to go through, the different open source stuff, and there are vulnerabilities up and down. I don't know how they have managed to be installed in the number of systems they're installed in, because there are all kinds of, yes, exactly. There are all kinds of vulnerabilities here. But anyway, when you look at how they
wait a minute. Let's call it like it is. How dare you defame them, saying there are vulnerabilities? Please clearly call them the opportunities they are.
That's right. This is actually, I think we talk about that in the book, that the Brookings Institute, I'd have to go back in my own book here, but
there's nothing like hiring a home builder that builds a secret back door into the home you have him build.
Right. And that's what that white paper said, was there are software platforms that the government allows vulnerabilities to remain, and they have to have a doorway. So anyway, that's a different rabbit hole. But anyway, when these MSISAC and then the EIISACs were formed, they basically, and this is all from their own information that they send out, this is basically off-the-shelf hardware plus their software. So, they'll say it's hardware and software based, but I mean, it can be any sort of out of the box hardware. It's very interesting when we think about that. This is a system that they choose, right? It's just have to have certain specs. Then you do your install. I believe, and Jovan, I want you to speak to this a little bit. I believe that part of this has to do with liability. And it says that in all of their, their agreements and stuff, when you sign up, that, we have, in no way are we liable for any breaches, so on and so forth.
Right. Let me give you a shortcut, folks, so you understand here that what Eve's setting up for you. We have what's called the Election Assistance Commission. Sounds great and helpful, doesn't it? So the Election Assistance Commission basically approves software recommended by the software companies, the voting companies, which are software companies. And they have recommended machines that they work on. And so all of that is sent into the Election Assistance Commission, and they basically kind of give it its blessing and say, we approve this as a machine to use during elections with the appropriate software. Now, that's as far as it goes. As long as you order one of those approved machines with that approved, quote unquote, election software on it, you're good to go. Now, let me explain the backwards part of it. Number one, You can go right now and you can look at the Election Assistance Commission website and the guidelines for these machines. You'll be able to look at for under VVS 1, whatever it is. Now, what that VV stands for is it's voluntary. Yeah. The rules, which they say we could abide by and should abide by, and it's the very voting companies, software companies that are members of this Election Assistance Commission that make up the rules, having the rules that it's completely voluntary, which is why you can't do anything based on these machines, because in their own paperwork, bylaws, and agreements say, well, it's only voluntary if we, use these. It's just a recommendation. Now, the second part of it is the gateways are opened by the counties themselves. So you hear about we're going to test. We're going to do LNA testing on the machines. We're going to do these testing to make sure the machines are ready for the election. Now, here's how that works. Here is the procedure. Let's see, you could probably follow it along at your home. Let's see if you could pass an election test. Here's how it goes. Ready? Turn on the machine. Does the screen light up? Well, put your finger in the air if you can pass that one. 2. Ready? Here comes the real hard test. Does it have Windows on it? Which is, their version. They're just looking it's the right version. 3, check and make sure you have the proper version of, in this case, we'll say Windows on it. Check. Now, that's really about all it is. Now, it's more about what they don't look for. Here's what they don't look for. Does it have any other crap that shouldn't be there? Does it have Russian crap on it? Does it have Chinese crap on it? Did anybody else add anything to it? Those are questions that aren't asked. And you know why they're not asked? Because they don't want to know. I just gave to you literally the protocol for logic and accuracy texting. Oh, hey, by the way, can you push a button and it shows up as a keystroke on the screen? You can. Can you add 1 + 1 and get 2? Wow, it has logic and it's accurate. It got 2. You think I'm kidding, but I'm telling you the truth. And all of the guidelines are voluntary. And by the way, what you call voting machines, which is part of the racket, we're going to get the voting machines and we're going to melt them into prison bars. We don't have voting machines, folks. They're software companies. That's why it's called Dominion Voting Systems. The machines themselves are predominantly Dell machines. And that's how they break this thing up.
I think you need to say that again, because I think that's a talking point that is often used by those that are trying to defend this nefarious stuff.
It's absolutely true. And this is what I try to teach people to understand. But it's also why the deep state, it's called the dilution effect. It's why they'll say, he's a treasure hunter. He's Mossad. He's a grifter. It's why they do that crap, because I'm calling it like it is, folks. You have to understand they have to keep you away from what the truth is. Mm-hmm. Dominion Voting Systems does not make voting machines. So when you see a Dominion executive sit in front of Congress and you're screaming at your TV, calling him a freaking liar, because you know these things connect to the internet, when he's saying, we do not make machines that connect to the internet, he's telling the truth, because they don't make machines. And even if they did, they literally don't connect them to the internet. The manual tells the county to do it. The county connects it to the internet, and the machines are predominantly Dell computers. Now, what the media does, it's just like telling you we're a democracy. No, we're a constitutional republic.
Thank you.
But the media continually beating you with the words democracy gets you to say it. Yeah. So it's the same thing with voting machines. And you say, we've got to get rid of these voting machines and melt them to prison bars. Well, here's the deal. Because the guidelines and the security on the machines is voluntary, you can't get a conviction on it. And at best, it's a misdemeanor.
Right.
That's why they keep you away from the paper, meaning the ballot, because it has hard rules that has to be done. Because every single ballot that's wrong, handled wrong, done wrong, printed wrong, and nefariously acted is a crime, a federal and state felony, each one. That's why they try to keep you on the machines, and that's why the media and the government keeps on harping on voting machines. But it's also why these companies can sue people and saying you besmirched us, because the fact is they don't do it. They're software companies with machines off the shelf in this public-private partnership that they have going on that creates these backdoors to allow this to happen. And by the way, it's kind of like your phone with Wi-Fi. You go out in the mountains, and all of a sudden your phone doesn't work. You can't text, you can't do anything. You know, you can't like Keith, you can't go to cheerleadersandbathingsuits.com, all the places that he goes and looks at, right? You can't do that.
Bookmarked.
Yes. But you get out of the mountains.
Yeah.
Right. I personally like hillbilliesandthemountains.com. You got to check that one out sometime. But I digress. I don't want to put thoughts in your brain anyway. But anyway, as you come out of the mountains, all of a sudden your phone has signal. Now I want to ask you a question. Did you do anything? No, you didn't. But the fact that you enabled your phone at some point in time to look for it, find it, search it out, and sniff it, it's going to automatically happen. And that's what happens when the counties take that, right, and plug it into these machines. It's the county that has internet. It's the county that has a network, and it's the county that does it. And that's why words matter. And by the way, why, you know, how many times you've said, they've got modems and they connect to the internet. Well, you know what, folks? They stopped modems in 94. Our world doesn't manufacture modems anymore. In fact, they're integrated on cards. So why are you still using that word from 30 years ago?
Yeah,
that's the game.
Absolutely. And may I just continue where we kind of were here with the CrowdStrike story? Arizona, am I right? It was their early primary voting when this went down?
Yes, it is. It's early primary voting. All of us in CrowdStrike can't go down. So they swear they're not connected, and boom, you can't vote. And it's happened every single primary and or midterm, even before that, for many, many times, but people don't seem to connect it yet. But go ahead.
Right, yeah, but it may.
Why is that important? Explain why that's important? The internet going down, specifically during these primaries. What's happening there?
Well, let me ask you a question, Keith. We're going to put your bad guy hat on, okay?
Oh, no.
No, I'm going to ask you a question. You're the guinea pig, brother. It's your program. Okay. You are in a town of 100,000 people.
Okay.
And you're Dr. Evil. For $1 billion, you're going to throw this election in the town. You got 100,000 people. You've got only two parties, Democrat and Republican, let's just say. How many votes do you need to make sure your candidate wins the election?
I mean, I would think 50,001. But
well,
that's if everyone's
if you had
voting.
an even vote. So what you're saying is you need to know the numbers as they come in. You've got to know what to do.
There we go. Thank you.
So here's the question. Are you just as Dr. Evil in a town of 100,000 people going to poop in 50,000 votes? Hell no. It'll stick out like a sore thumb if you have a 90% turnout. So how do you make sure your candidate wins? It looks like a squeaky race, so people made sure it looks like it fought out. And let me give you Arizona. Not only did Joe Biden supposedly win by 10,500 votes, and it just barely squeaked by at the end, on the opposite end of the magical spectrum, it happened to be 500 votes under what automatically triggers a full audit of every ballot. It's all about the numbers. So now, Keith, let me tell you, if they're not supposed to have the internet and the internet goes down and now you can't vote, what's obviously going on? How do you think they understand what every machine does at every point in time? They've got to have a direct feed of everything as it happens.
Yes. And this was something too. It was very interesting to kind of live this world of discovery with Jovan, because they were out there in the middle of this in Arizona. And, you know, basically I was feeding them information that I had discovered, and they were sending back questions, and it was just kind of this back and forth. And when it hit Jovan and the team, that this system is going through their sheriff's departments and their other county departments, and it's live. I mean, I could hear the gears working in Jovan's head because they were looking at it. I mean, they were watching it in action. So when we saw what happened with this outage, and you see Maricopa go down in live in the middle of it all, people started asking the right questions in the public. And this is why the timing of the second show is so key as well. Because it's like Jovan said, people would say, I didn't think that, our elections were connected to the internet. Okay, so we have settled that one. They are absolutely connected to the internet. But number two, people say, well, why would that CrowdStrike update have affected these elections? Number two, and this is what the book had set out, over a year ago, CrowdStrike is live 24/7. They have access to the entire system. They can see what's going on. They can update things. People have, it was all sold in terms of security. And what's very interesting about all of that is the GAO office had audited this. I think it's up to 4 times now.
General Accounting Office, folks, the government money changers.
Yep. And listen, if they failed it 3 or 4 times, we know that it was nothing but a deep pit of, it was an overreach to network the entire system because it's pointless. I mean, it didn't work. They admit it doesn't work. And when it was turned off in a locality, the admonishment and the meltdown they had from CISA was, you've removed our visibility.
Yeah, let me give you something, Keith. I'm gonna give you another pop quiz. You ready?
No.
Come on, man. You're the surrogate viewer.
What do you got?
Here's the pop quiz. We are not connected to the internet, but our techs need to be there to make sure we have the right antivirus software installed.
Sounds like a Trojan horse just waiting.
Well, think about that, right? Mm-hmm. And so if they're not connected to the internet, why do they have antivirus? Let me tell you the second thing. Ready? Okay. You're supposed to have a fixed version of the software, and that version has to be on the machine. Now, if the fixed version got decided, and it's the key word, fixed, why at these locations do they need techs that update the software? The version's fixed. Let me tell you what goes on. They outlaw all these versions as they find holes. On the machine, it has, quote unquote, the corrected software that is approved by the government that if somebody really audited. Now, when they do these audits, risk limit audits or LNA and all this other crap they do, they go, here's the question they go, is version XXXA on there? And they check yes. But you know what's also on there? Version XXA and then XA. They never ask the question, why is that? Now, why do they need techs? Because they start the election, they're looking at the data, all of a sudden you see techs come in and they've got to update. All they do, which is not a crime, they roll it back one version. Now that one has all the holes that are open because they don't check that it's there and it's not a boo-boo. They say it's a boo-boo. It's not a law not to have it there. They let it run under that. And then towards the end, we got to do another update. And they switch it right back to the official version so they can say, we started with this version and we end with this version. These things are so blatantly obvious that you would understand it. If it's not connecting to the net, why does it have antivirus? And if it's a fixed version of software, all this crap's supposed to be run on, why are they having to do continual updates during the course of the election? It's really that blatant, folks. How
many people, if you're able to estimate, say, okay, let's say it's not just limited to election night, obviously. So the whole operation, do you have an estimation of all of the manpower that is used? And are the people that are connected with the software stuff?
It's a good question.
Are they also connected with the ballot stuff that you showed us the forensics?
I got asked this. Yeah, I got asked this by the Attorney General's office in Arizona. Man, it sounds like this is big. Now, remember, in Maricopa County, Arizona, which I think it's not Maricopa, it's Maricorruption County. But in
Hang on.
Maricorruption County, Arizona, it's supposedly 2.6 million voters. It is the
Okay.
fourth largest county in the United States of America, and it is the second largest voting block of voters in the United States of America.
Wow.
And so the Attorney General's office.
This is Ducey's or Katie Hobbs?
Ducey's governor.
Right.
And during the audit, it was a fellow by the name of, I'm bad with German names, but Bernabich or something like that.
Okay, that's okay. What I'm asking is, whose Attorney General are you having this conversation with? Ducey's Attorney General?
Ducey's Attorney General at the
so we're
time, and
still
they investigated him. Yeah.
Okay.
And so they go, it sounds like it takes a lot of people to do this. And I said, no, give me 4 people and I can change that outcome of your entire county. It's such a small footprint. But I'll relate it to you in my treasure hunting days. If you and I were going out, let's say in Montana, and we're going to go chase down some treasure, let me tell you how it works.
Okay.
So there are.
I'm willing to do that, by the way. This doesn't have to be a hypothetical, brother.
Absolutely, brother. And we'll make a point of doing it, folks.
Okay, go ahead.
When you go to Wells, you know Wells Fargo Stagecoach, and I've told this story before, but it's worth telling again. Remember back in the Stagecoach days, everybody was paid in gold coins. And most people don't understand gold is heavy, right? So a $25,000, $30,000 Prevost, which was a ton of money, it's several hundred pounds of gold. People don't realize that. And so the bandit, right? You see him, he gets out from behind the rock, just kind of like in the Lone Ranger, and he says, throw that lockbox down. And the guy throws it down and it says, now get the hell out of here. Now, the first question is, why do they tell him to get the hell out of there? Well, it's for 2 reasons. That box is so damn heavy, they can't run with it. So what they have to do is they have to shoot it and break it open. So now what they do is they take a few handfuls of gold coins and they put them in their pockets and put a few in their saddlebag. And remember, something about the size of a pack of cigarettes would be like 12 pounds. Most people don't know the weight of gold. And you can't put a lot in your saddlebags because you'll beat your horse to death running away. So they really only take out about 3% of the loot right then and there. And so 97% of that gold coin specie is buried somewhere within 500 yards of the original crime scene because they can't run with it. It's too damn heavy. So they bury it and they haul ass. Now, let's say we're in the we're dumb screws. We're in the Jesse Jackass gang, and we go out into the mountains and we all got our gold coin. Well, one thing you know about your band of brothers, they're all bad and they're all thieves and they're all killers. And so when they get to their hideout over the course of the night, or when they got to go pinch a loaf or whatever, they go hide their coin. They tell nobody about it. Why? Because they're amongst thieves. And so if we were searching for ancient treasure, we want to go back to the original crime scene, search within 500 yards, we can find the big loot. We want to go to the robbers' hideout because they're stashing it all over the place in little places to keep it from each other. And the rig is in the election the same way. One person making a muck on a printer to make one printer go bad does one thing. One person over here that you've paid off in printing the ballots does another. One person over here that's not going to check signature rights or whatever, it's just compounding. And they're certainly not going to tell each other because it's a crime. Mm-hmm. So you have to understand the compounding effect. It really doesn't take a lot of people. And oh, by the way, the machines that you scan them on, the printers, they have network access and they know every time something's scanned in and they control them. I'll give you a few things about the machines you don't know. Just the little scanner part. When you think you cast your ballot, you didn't cast your vote. Number one, somebody can go in and set a setting that says, out of every 2 ballots cast, I want to kick one of them out to say we got to look at it and find out what's wrong. And they can just set that setting. Does it mean anything's wrong with the ballot? No. Now, if everybody's supposed to vote the same and identically, right? 14th Amendment. They can have one machine set this way in a conservative precinct, one machine over here that says, I don't give a rat's ass about any of them, make them all go through. They can also think about the oval, right? These machines have settings in them that, we broke the story and told people. You can go to a Republican precinct and say, in that oval, if they don't fill in 70% of the oval or more. Some people kind of scribble and you can see the white through it, or they do an X. If they don't fill in 70% or more, we don't have to count it. Do they tell you when it gets rejected? No, not at all. But you can go over to this precinct over here and they'll go, as long as they filled in 5%, we count it. Now, why do they do it 5% over here? Because if they're going to batch ballot rob, where they're just going X, 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 and I can show you all these things and run them through, they know they can't fill out the circles perfect. It takes too much time. So they got to mark them quick and run them through. All of these machines have built-in variations. What the hell do you do it? Now, here's one that will kick your butt. Dominion and their software brags about they are so good with handicapped people. We care about handicapped people. We don't want to discriminate. And so inside our database, we have over 1 million versions of how an oval can be filled in. Because we don't want people with shaky hands to be called out, oh, you're a shaky hand. So we can fill in the ovals for them over 1 million different ways. And oh, by the way, just as an added bonus, we designed it where, well, when you look at them, you can't tell the difference between an added oval we did and what somebody voted with a Sharpie. It's that in our face, and people don't pay attention.
Okay, man. We're going to get to some solutions, right? We'll get there. But I have so many questions, and the audience has been asking questions since July 4th when we did that show. Again, part 1, if you missed it, we did on the 4th of July. Please go and find that, youtube.com/@the-mic. Look for the deep dive playlist. Scroll down a few episodes, and you'll see that 3.5-hour conversation, which was...
And it went by like it was 10 minutes.
It sure did. Okay, so I've got questions, and spend as much time on these as you'd like. These could be quick answers. These are my questions that I wanted to bring up today. All right. So, and by the way, y'all, I'm putting him on the spot. I didn't say, hey, I'm going to ask you about this stuff. But if you don't have the answer, by all means, please.
Yes, it's true.
It's fine. It's true.
Yes, okay. Yes. I'm just telling you right up front. I'll admit it. Let me admit it. I know you're going to ask it, and this is why I won't run for office. I know you're going to ask it. Number one, I've already admitted in public that as shameful as it is, the reason I won't run for office, I physically abused my mother. Now, I hate embracing that, but if I'm going to be a real man, like my mother taught me growing up, I've got to admit I punched her. And I kicked her, and I'm ashamed of it. Now, granted, I was 4 months in the womb, but I still did it, and those rat bastards are going to find it out.
Okay.
And so I just have to admit it. And oh, by the way, I used to live in L.A. Richard Gere's a buddy of mine.
All right. I don't know where this is going. These aren't the questions. So
that gerbil was mine. His name's
all right, Your Honor.
Sneaker,
strike this from the record. Okay. So here we go. I'm in Texas, and I see reports of so many, a massive influx of voter registration happening here. And I don't know if you have any knowledge of this whatsoever, but I am terrified that Texas is gonna at least flirt with going blue starting this next election cycle. Do you have any information on what's happening in Texas with all of these registrations? And I'm sure it's connected to the influx of illegal aliens. Any thoughts on that?
Texas has twofold. I'll use Tarrant County as a good example. You got DFW Metroplex in Dallas County, Tarrant County.
Tarrant is where Fort Worth is. Mm-hmm.
Fort Worth, yeah. You have a rash of what's called BMDs in Texas in use. And a BMD basically says, we're concerned that people can't fill out ovals properly. And so we want to do it for them. And it helps us save the environment because we don't use paper. And so you go to a machine. They don't give you a paper ballot. You mark it on the screen by push. And then basically it prints you a ballot receipt. It's not the ballot. It just prints you a ballot receipt with a Q code on it that nobody can read except the voting company. And you basically think that you have voted properly. When you have a machine that inserts your vote, you cannot tell natively in the machines what was voted by a human, what was voted by a machine, what was mass printed or otherwise. So many of, and I'm getting feedback right here, many of Arizona, of Texas, unfortunately, you're the worst of all is you have nothing to audit. Nothing. You can't even audit, is it the proper ballot? Was it the proper format? Etc. You have that's 100% blind trust system where you have ballot marking devices. So Texas is in a bad issue. Texas is going to turn blue. Mark my word. I'm a Texan. I know what I'm talking about. They've been working on it and taking it over. A lot of the people that were involved in some of the nefarious actions in other countries magically now are elected officials in Texas for the voting systems. And then last but not least, when you come across the border in Texas, they ask you if you're going to work. And if you say you're going to work, they issue a social security card with a promise to pay. Go get your driver's license. When you go get your license and give your social security card, they immediately merge it together with motor voter, and you automatically are registered to vote. Next, what happens is you've now gone in to get your driver's license. They're going to give it to you in Spanish because they don't want to discriminate. But because they ask you for ID, you're going to show them that social security card that the government gave you. They're going to assume you're a citizen. Nobody checks citizenship. You're going to get your driver's license. Right after you get your driver's license, because they've automated this, you're going to get your voter registration card, which is already done. Now, you're an illegal and you go, wow, look at all the stuff they're giving me. And I have a voter registration card. What do you think? Do you think you get the right to vote because you got a voter registration card? Of course you do. However, if somehow that illegal votes and somehow they just didn't know they weren't supposed to, it's not their fault and they cannot be prosecuted. And they won't take the vote off the books because once they vote, you can't tell who did it. It's just a boo-boo and they weren't informed. But who are the people giving the impression they can vote? The very government running the systems. I guesstimate Texas has been infused for this next round 3.7 million brand new voters in system that are all illegals. And by the way, when you have 200 illegals that use this little bitty address for one person here, and that's not illegal, and all those ballots or whatever gets sent to them, if they request a mail-in ballot, which they can do, who's picking up those ballots? It's not the illegal, but those ballots are going to come back.
Okay, well, I just know, just from my own research and being a Texas resident, I know that the margin off the top of my head here in 2020 between Trump and Biden in Texas was a lot. It was more narrow than 3.7 million.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember. It was like one. I forget. It was not. In other words, you're not giving me hope for Texas. Okay, so hold on. Here's a state
Keith, we're at war, buddy.
I know.
I'm telling you the truth. We are at war, but you know who we have to work on? We got to work on listeners, and they have to call this stuff out and got to know what to look for. But we're at war.
I'm with you. I'm not disputing that for 1 second. What I'm just going through is I have a list of these states I want to ask you about,
sure.
And I'm gonna put Texas in the that's not good news category. All right, so it seems like Georgia has made progress. They lost an all-star game for some of the work they're doing there. I did hear something about paper ballots happening there. I wasn't sure how that went through, but I know that the original law that was so terrible back in 2020, it was a clearing off of the rolls. It was streamlining that and making sure that the people that were on these rolls, because that's the thing that I think needs to be really pounded into people's heads, is it's not voters that are the issue. It's the voter rolls that can be taken advantage of, and therefore votes are magically appearing because these names are on the rolls. So tell us if there's been any hope, any progress made in the state of Georgia since 2020.
I'm going to let you make your own decision. There has been some cleaning of the rolls. The Georgia Republican former lieutenant governor just came out and gave his official endorsement for Kamala because he's such a good Republican. And in Georgia, lawmakers with a lot of politicking by Arizona lawmakers enacted that they're going to use a special encoded ballot that has monetary level protection in it, which basically means it kind of has a hologram kind of stuff in it. And they're going to do that in the ballots. So let's do a little reverse education. Number one, the lawmakers conveniently forgot to tell everybody they make a 25 cents a ballot. Yeah, they get paid for these ballots. So they kind of forgot to tell you that. Second, yes, it's going to have, let's just call it an indicia or security measures. Now, I'm going to give you the other 2 points of this. Number one, the systems that you feed these the paper versions of the ballots to in Georgia, ostensibly early and mail-in ballots, when you feed them into the machine does not look for that code, for that security measure, and it does not confirm it. So the machines aren't going to catch if the paper's right, even though they say there's a law for it. So now to confirm that the paper is right and it has this little thing in it, what do you have to do? You have to physically hand touch and inspect the ballots, which they won't let you do.
Okay.
But
everyone
yes,
can score at home.
But yes, they are doing a paper ballot that has a security feature in it.
Okay. All right.
I've been blowing this whistle for a long time. I think it is so freaking disrespectful. And it's part of the reason the system hates me. When this was going around in Arizona with the Republican lawmakers clamoring for audits and stuff, they don't tell you. They've got stock in the company, options in the company, and they get commissions per ballots. And they've run around the states to get states to sign up. It's smoke and freaking mirrors, but yet they're going to print millions and millions and millions and millions of ballots, and you're going to think they did something. So yeah, you got a security code in your Georgia paper.
So everyone can score at home. You can put whatever column you want for Texas after the information Jovan just shared, and Georgia. Now, here are 2 states that I've already publicly written off for the Republicans in November, and that is Michigan, based on the new law there that Governor Whitmer made sure happened, where you can't challenge if you suspect fraud, you can't challenge the results, the recount and all that good stuff. And then Wisconsin, with the judge saying, yep, put as many drop boxes as you want out there. Yay. So I've already personally put an X next to those 2 states. What say you?
Whitmer's
on developments. I'm not going to put you on the spot.
No. Whitmer's stuff was specifically done to make sure that Michigan doesn't get a full forensic audit ever. And they basically ostensibly outlawed audits unless the state approves and the very people that ran the election approve of the audit. You can't force them to do it. And then if they do agree there should be an audit, it gets to be auditors they've trained or they hand select. Yeah. I just want you to understand how this works. How this works is, imagine you're Charlie Manson.
Okay.
And you've just gone on a murder spree and you get arrested and you're going to be serving, you're going to have to go to court, but you get to pick the judge and you get to pick the jury and you get to decide if you like the verdict and rule on it yourself. That's how it works. And so that's what they did in Michigan. Michigan is a different type of corruption than Arizona. When we were going to there were 5 states that were going to do a full forensic audit, but the system understood it's people, paper, and programs. We got to hide people away. So they put a legion of bow-tied so-called experts on the road, and they dissuaded 5 other states from doing full forensic audits. But in this process, the bad guys, who are very hard to tell the difference from the good guys that are supposedly helping us, they wrote laws to make sure this never happens again. Like them screaming, well, they're not certified election auditors. Well, just so you know, nobody ever was in the history of time. There was no such position. But now that we've done it, like I personally looked at over 2 million ballots, 189 million ovals, I have the experience to say what it is, but they're not going to do that. So what they did is they started putting laws in place to absolutely guarantee there's no way you can audit these things. Now let's jump to Wisconsin. True to their state, cheesy, bunch of holes in it like Swiss cheese. Here's what they did with drop boxes and stuff like that. And I can again, I'll go back and just revisit an analogy from Arizona. Arizona, 76% mail-in ballot state. Everybody got about a mail-in ballot. You have to understand that there's a process in the mail-in ballot. You have an outside envelope. In there is a ballot and a return envelope, maybe a little bitty instruction set. When it's put together and mailed, that's called the packet. That's not called your ballot. When the packet gets mailed out, when the bad addresses come back, no such person, deceased, moved, wrong address, right, unknown, those are supposed to be reported. But in Arizona, they reported after 16 months, only 14 months too late, that they only got 56,000 of them back, but they couldn't find any of them. They said they destroyed them, which is against the law. But there were actually 110,000 plus return, completely disappeared. Now, why does that and how do drop boxes come in? This is where you have to understand what 2,000 mules is. The system creates a bloat of ballots. So when you've got 10,000 illegals using one local nonprofit's address as their mailing address, which the nonprofit allows, and they mail all of those ballots there, those illegals aren't getting those ballots. So somebody comes around and they collect the bloat of the ballot. It's called fungibility. They collect the bloat, dead people, unknown people. You got postal people that knows that there's only one person at this address, but they're delivering 50 ballots. They'll pocket the 49 extras. They sell them into the black market. So now what you have is an abundance of legal ballots in circulation. Those legal ballots are gathered up by bad actors. They are then delivered to NGOs, non-governmental organizations. The non-governmental organizations kind of have a back room. Mm-hmm. Some of the ballots they get because they know where to get them. Some of the ballots they pay and give you a gaming card or a Walmart card or whatever the case may be, gift cards. It's all over the place. They get all these ballot packets. In the back room, they crack open the ballot. This is called a ballot cracking operation. They crack it open. The envelope goes in the trash, meaning the mailer envelope. Now you got a ballot, now you got a return envelope. And they sit there and they wait for instructions. Now go back to a little bit in the conversation. They've got to watch all the numbers as they come in. Kind of like a ticker in Vegas. You're watching things. Hey, we need something in precinct 48. We need 10. Right? And so they'll look through their ballots. They already have them sorted. Oh, I've got precincts 48. They'll fill them out for their candidate. They'll put them back in the return envelope, scribble on the back a signature because none of the signature verification works, hand them to the ballot mule. Now they got their 5 they need for precinct 48. And the ballot mule then deploys and goes to a circuitous route of boxes. Their average was 29. And they drop them off, take a picture as they drop them off so they get paid because they're the couriers, and then they come back and pick up more. That is the circle of how this is done. And that is why when they didn't clean the rolls, and there were people out there, I couldn't believe it at Turning Point USA, Mike Lindell's team, Cause of America, saying, don't worry about the voter rolls. That's stupid. They're just going to put more on. No, folks, we didn't take the 21 million off that was there, and now they've added another 10. This is why we have to get rid of it. It's bloat. It's not the machines, it's bloat. And if you can get a hold of those ballots, or you can get a hold of those voter IDs, you can do anything you want with them. And so that is the issue that we're going to face in 24, because it was not dealt with, the paper and the people and the programs. And that's it. And I just gave you the full cycle of how this works. It's not like you think. It's not they hire, homeless people to go around. Hey, ask your buddy if you can have his ballot. How many homeless people know people that have homes or have a way to get around to other people's homes to say, hey, family member, give me a ballot? It's horseshit. It's all built into the system, and they're deploying these people to be their mules, because that's what it is. It's trafficking of ballots, but the system knows where the bloat is, and that's what they're doing. And that's why they legalized drop boxes.
I apologize go ahead.
The moment they drop it in that drop box, folks, it becomes fair play, because here's what happens. Now that ballot comes in, it gets dropped off. It's got an outside security envelope that's supposed to have your signature on it. The moment they separate the envelope from the ballot in the drop box or any voting box, the ballot goes one way and the envelope goes the other. All they do is look, is this a person that we had on the list? Well, yeah, it was. We know the signature check is crap. But see, the ballot goes over here and gets counted. By law, to pull that ballot out of the system, you have to prove that person voting was bad, but both pieces went a different direction, and you can never put them back together again.
I apologize. I had a cold, hard system crash in the middle of this whole thing. It was very strange. But anyway,
hey, the audio's better if that's worth something to you.
Yeah, I'll take that. And you don't need my face, so that's good. What was great about what Jovan's got all the physical evidence, and as he's talking, I'm putting, and this is where we went back and forth a couple of years ago, putting together the tech evidence on the other side, because as he's speaking, remember, you cannot break a precinct. You break a precinct and you raise a red flag. Now
that means if your precinct has 1,000 voters, you better not have 1,100 ballots. You always have to know, if you only got 1,000 allotted in a precinct, how many people have voted?
No, hold on.
But before you flag yourself.
And Eve, hold on 1 second. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you just made me remember something. Didn't I see something where there are counties in Michigan that have more voters than votes than registered voters?
Yes.
I recently saw. Okay. So,
what are you, a conspiracist? That's
Absolutely.
never been proven. I read it on Lead Stories. That was fact checked.
Anyhow.
Checked.
Well,
I'm sure people will be held accountable.
As I was saying it, I could feel the asterisk trying to leap out of my mouth, because as you remember, there were other voting precincts in 2020 that people said, hey, well, wait a minute.
May I insert something just real quick, Eve? I'm
Sure.
so sorry. Somebody's asking, who is the woman speaking?
Eve, I'm sorry.
Eve is my co-author in the book. Eve is the deep digging brains behind a lot of this. And that's what makes our team great. But because this is so dangerous, you remember, folks, they tried to assassinate me, came very damn close. Because of family and stuff, and I'm already out there, we have to protect Eve, right? So God bless Eve for even doing it. But that's why you're not seeing her face, but that's who you're hearing.
I appreciate y'all making that clear. I should have done that at the onset. Eve, please continue.
Sure. No problem whatsoever. Anyway, we were speaking about, breaking precincts. And I remember in 2020, there were people that came out in Milwaukee County and were showing that, there were over 100%. And then I think it was about 2 weeks later, they magically corrected those numbers. But Jovan can speak to this, that, a review of Russian elections flagged anything, 75% and over is fraudulent.
Yeah.
So
it's called the MyTech, I guess it is. And several governments got together and said, can we determine what election fraud looks like? And basically, they came out and they said, we've studied all these past elections, and the worst election in the world that we know was corrupt was Russia. And so they said that any voting turnout that's 76% or greater is a sure sign of voter fraud. But then it said the next levels of it are if they do the following. They allow drop boxes to insert ballots. if they don't allow you to inspect the books, if they don't force ID, and if they do not allow you to conduct audits after the fact. And then the final linchpin was, and if it's really bad, they will deploy the government, military, and police and lock everything down, claiming you're trying to overthrow the government. Now, that was the blueprint of 2012 Russia. It's called the MITRE report. Not only did we hit every one of those, but the average turnout in some of these precincts was 90%, not a measly 76%.
Yes.
So even by their own standards, they fail in every category.
Yes. And what's very interesting is that when you dig into the Albert monitoring system and what it is, it appears in 2016. At that point, there are 14 Albert monitors. In 2017, it's reported that 25 states are on it. 2018 midterms were up to 135. That's the 2018 midterms has an asterisk by it of being the number one CIA infested elected. More former CIA people that had, operatives were elected in the 2018 midterms. In 2020, there were all 50 states had used 751. But each time in 2018, we had the largest turnout.
At that time?
Yeah, at that time, it broke a record from like 1919 or something like that. And then in 2020, here we have another record turnout. And when you listen to what Jovan is saying as to, bloat, the bloat of the voter rolls, and then how the thing is, data is a great thing, but data is also our enemy because now they have such precise information as to who's where, who's voted and who hasn't. It's become our enemy now.
Right. So let me share one thing with the audience listening. You're going to hear this term Albert Central. You'll read it in the book. Let me give you a little bit non-geek from me to kind of understand how this is. There used to be an old project a long time ago of sensors that could monitor traffic. Failed miserably. Total bust. And I'm shortening this up. But somehow, uniquely, that sensor kept being alive. And then once Donald J. Trump got in, because Hillary was complaining he stole the election, what she was really saying, we had the election stolen. How did you steal it from us? Well, it's because people got off their butt. Now, when President Trump told you they're after you, not me, here's the truth of the matter. The Russia, and when you read our book, Countdown to Chaos, you can get it on Amazon, hardback, paperback, right, ebook. We give you, the book's not in our words. The book is all their words, the very people who did it, who signed the orders, who did the executive orders. You see everything. We name names, the whole bit. It's their stuff, not our stuff. What they did, the reason for the Russia, it was stolen, it was Russia. So what they did, very quickly put everything under critical infrastructure in our elections. It wasn't there before. Took this outdated little thing they were tinkering with, and then under the guise of protecting us from Russia, they installed all of these all across all the states. That is the mechanism combined with fusion centers and stuff that allows them to see the traffic of all the voting. Now, I'm going to give you one thing. The way they hit it, we're protecting you. So it's a partnership with local law enforcement. So what they did, like in Maricopa, they went to the sheriff, who is a Soros guy. They installed this device, and the county took their quote-unquote election servers, co-located with the sheriff, right? And all of a sudden, all the election data is technically going to the sheriff where this thing is monitoring. They're looking at every vote come in. That's why there were 30,000 anonymous incursions into the Maricopa election database that the county can't account for. 30,000 of them using a common password. Now, here's the ass kicker. Remember, we never got the Splunk logs of the routers. Remember the song Wendy's Where the Routers, President Trump? Let me tell you, folks, we never got those Splunk logs and never got those routers because it would show us what fusion centers was monitoring the traffic. And the loophole they used is by co-locating it with the sheriff under protecting us, and the sheriff saying, we can't let you look at our servers because it'll expose our undercover agents and active investigations we go on. And that's how they did it to us. Under the guise of protecting us, they jammed it through 50 states, and now they watch every single vote as it comes in.
Oh,
Well, and it's super fascinating to read through how this comes around too, in official testimony, congressional testimony, different investigations, because once you realize that the entire thing was fabricated, Colonel John Mills was a great source in discussing some of this because he was on the National Security Council trying to help, vet these fake reports. And he comes out and he says, listen, I'm not putting my name on this because this is false. This can't be proven. But they continue to go on with it. And Colonel Mills says, listen, he was told specifically that it was Comey and it was Brennan that had hands on keyboard drafting this.
Yeah.
Yes, drafting this to go to Obama to basically say, listen, we've got this problem with Russia. They're in our elections. And Obama says very specifically that he wants a solution as to how to secure our elections in light of the report. And we know the entire report is fake.
So hold on one second. This is important for Eve here. Hey, Keith, can you see the question by Kim Justo Blank?
About DeSantis?
Yeah. So Kim,
and here's the question.
It says, does Governor DeSantis know all of this? I personally went to Florida, sat down in the governor's mansion with Governor DeSantis and his lovely wife, Casey, had a very long breakfast meeting showing them how this works. It was shocking to them. And then it's immediately handed to their people. We've got to look into this. In that state, in Ohio, or whatever, those secondary people that are experts come from the very voting companies we're exposing this on, and then it dies on the vine.
And so they could, it's almost like giving them the playbook. Hey, we know what they're doing, and now they can go and change the
They
playbook.
assumed, right? A governor rightly assumes they're not going to, I'm assign it to my person, here, go.
Right.
They're off to 1,000 things. A lot of those seconds in Ohio and other places come from the very voting companies that enact this. I think that should actually be expressly forbidden by law.
Absolutely. And when you understand the Election Infrastructure Sector Coordinating Council, which is what basically is chartered to set this all up by the DHS, every one of those voting systems companies is a member of that, and they govern our elections. So what he said is absolutely true. So DeSantis hands it to his guy in the Secretary of State's office or whomever, and they hand it over to the tech guy who's part of the systems. Well, they're inside that EISEC. They manage the election from the other side. So, there was a question that came to me from somebody, one of my sources, that said, there's a solution. Somebody said, well, let's just handle it. Let's get Trump in there. Let's take care of this. Let's handle it from the federal side. There's no jurisdiction up there because we're here state and local. Our jurisdiction starts constitutionally. We have to manage our elections here. So when they keep sending it up the chain like that, you are just, exacerbating the problem. You have to find, and Jovan and I talked about this, you have to find injunctive relief locally.
Yeah, one of the things we need to talk about is injunctive relief. Keith, let me give you, folks, you need to understand we have state elections that happen to have some federal components of it, but we have state elections. But let me tell you how bad this is, because I want you to understand how this works. No lawmaker is going to fix this for you.
Right.
No law is going to fix it for you. Somebody could draft the most perfect law, and it'll come into effect in 2027, 2028. Simple math, well, that's outlawed now. It's racist. But if you're one of these racist people that do math, you will find out it's 24. and we're about to have an election. So does it matter that it comes in online on 27th? Not at all. So quit thinking your lawmakers are going to solve this. It's about you understanding this and how it works. Okay. You just have to understand how all of the, I lost the screen.
No, that's me. That's me. I'm going to talk about this here in a second.
So you gotta understand these pieces and components to it. These guys are the very regulators we have to fight against. But it's you. It is you and only you that if you understand how they do it to you, you understand how to push back. Now, I was in Georgia. Most people, if you didn't know me before, you probably saw when I was doing a Senate hearing in Georgia, and I basically called out the lawmakers. I called them on the carpet, right? It's hard to find, but the freaking thing went viral. And I basically started showing in December of 2020, this is how it works. A few things so you understand behind that scene is that was a Republican committee that put it together. And the moment that I did that testimony and I left, they fired every Republican from that committee because they had now exposed the loophole. Now, while I'm on the ground, and this is when Ornoff, is it Ornoff? Sarnoff, whatever it is, when they're doing the runoff, Stacey Abrams and all that crap, when they're doing this first thing in 21. Ossoff. Okay. We can kind of see this stuff going on and happening, and we're running it up the chain. So I'm on the ground. It's early voting in this Senate runoff, and I get a phone call, won't tell you the source, and they say, we got a report that a shredding company picked up a shred, and they're saying it's Dominion ballots. Now, if you don't remember the history back then, because we have a short memory, right after the 2020 election, there was a god-awful amount of ballots shredded, right? And it created quite a stir in Georgia. And so all of the shredding companies there said, we're not going to do anything anymore, anything associated with a Dominion. We don't want to be dragged into this stuff. Well, what happened as this runoff's going, and I'd already exposed, they had hundreds of thousands of extra printed ballots standing and waiting. I got a call that a guy came in at a very high security level. I get the call. I'm on the ground with my people in Georgia, and it says, we got a report from a shredding company that they picked up a shred, started it, and damned if it isn't ballots, and it's for Dominion. Now, Dominion has nothing to do with ballots. And the guy has called and said, I stopped the shred. You can come pick up my truck, but you got to know what's in it. So I took the call. So I mobilize everybody, and we're going to get a place to store all of this stuff and go through the shredder. Now, the way it happened is he said the company got a call, and the call was, I'm with Dominion Trucking, which there is a Dominion Trucking company, and we need an immediate shred. Now, the shred they asked for this time wasn't you don't think spaghetti. It was what's called shred, cross, roll, meaning they shred it long ways, then they cut it into little bitty diamond confetti, and then it rolls it into a booger ball. Like a spit wad.
That is intense.
So, yeah. And so when the guy gets there and shredding, there was a jam. He looks into the machine, and all of a sudden, here is all this Dominion crap. And he's going, holy smokes. He shuts it down, leaves. That's how it got triaged to me. So I arranged to get this into a warehouse, and we start pulling everything out of the back of the truck, all clandestine and secure. It's already trashed. We're looking through it. We're finding all kinds of incriminating stuff, which I won't go into. And so I was asked to do a debrief at the Department of Homeland Security the next day, and we're doing a very, very, very high level debrief. And a person wanted to listen in on that call. That person was Mark Meadows. And so he's going to listen in on the call, and we do a whole debrief of what we found. The next day, SSAs, which are special agents in charge, show up, tell us to stand down, that they're taking it over. They seize everything, seize every bit of that evidence, seize it all, push everybody to an outside perimeter, brought in a convoy of protection, and proceeded to drive that truck to an incinerator and incinerating everything inside it. That's how high up a lot of this stuff goes and how clandestine and horrible it is. And I haven't even told you the underbelly of all this stuff at all. There is so many things that it like in Georgia alone, houses that were owned by attorneys were rented out to people they brought in. The people are there, right? Transient people, Antifa people. They are in the backyard with barrels burning ballots as fast as they can. We even got video evidence of it and all this stuff. As soon as it goes into the system, gone.
Okay, man, my head is exploding. I want to address what I put on the screen here and then let y'all get back to your points here. What I looked up was this is the voter turnout percentage year by year. I mean,
that's right.
The last 50 something years there. What you're seeing there, obviously, presidential years in the left hand column. So 1968, we had 62.5%. And then when we did the midterm in 1970, we're at 47.3%. And so I just want everyone to.
Yeah, midterms are always small. Always.
Exactly. So
except now we have 90% midterm turnout too.
Well, and that's one thing I want to make clear to everybody. As you can see there, the turnout percentage in the presidential years, I mean, it doesn't go above in the last 50 something, almost 60 years, where at the high watermark was early on, 62.5%. You know, when Americans were involved in the process and there wasn't this, electronic voting and the mass fraud. But I think what is interesting here is y'all have pointed out that the voter turnout for the midterm in 2018. Wow, what a leap from 2014. Went from 36.7% to 50% voter turnout. And then look, wow, 2020, 66.6%, almost 67%.
And that's a weighted average. If you the states you asked about.
Yeah, right. And you're telling me that that Americans today care so much more about who they elect than they did 50 years ago and beyond, by the way. I've just scoped this down here. And then the midterms were up to 46% in 2022, which, again, completely out of character over the midterms going back to 50 or so years on the screen there. And that is just an illustration of what y'all have been talking about. Well, and you said that this fraud began. That this whole massive scale. I know it goes back decades, but what was the first election that was affected by this?
There were many elections affected by it, but it goes back to the 80s. But one particular thing, and even though this is showing 66%, because math is racist. There's only 7 states that decide the presidency.
Right. No.
And if you just look at those 7 states, all of their precincts
counties
are in the 90s.
Yep, exactly. And that was the point that I wanted to make, and I'm glad you made that. It's that you don't need 90% turnout nationwide.
7 states, 7 counties decides our future.
7 counties you have to have this fraud perpetrated on election day. That's where the madness lies. Okay. Any updates in Pennsylvania in the last 4 years from the 2020 election? I'm just going through the
Yeah,
six
Josh
problem
Shapiro will
child.
be the VP pick.
Yeah.
He's going to get rewarded for that event they had, what, July 13th?
Yes. Yes. He was so eloquent, and that's all you need to be a VP. So, any changes there?
Well,
Or
they
is
flipped
Pennsylvania?
Bucks County and they flipped another county, right?
I saw that Bucks
Jerome?
County now red. They have more Republican voters in Bucks County than Democrat. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's going to be a hard-fought battle. It's a hard one. Understand everything you ever thought about Pennsylvania is, from two-finger Tony, I'm going to give you over to Vinny. Vinny's going to take care of you, is true. Philadelphia and Pennsylvania it's a hard fight. You got some incredible people that are fighting for it. It's going to be a battle. But I can also tell you a lot of the so-called elected Republicans will say one thing, behind the scenes they laugh their asses off and don't give a crap.
How's Nevada looking? Any changes there, or should we expect that to definitely
Nevada is probably the best battle there is. And Robert Beadles is the man leading that charge with his own money. He's millions and millions into it. And he is personally carrying the weight of his state and exposing this. They're fighting him every step of the way, but the people are waking up. It takes the people, not the lawmakers. And I think they're really making headway, and they were just able to undo one. But you should consider looking up the works. They have Operation Sunlight. You can look it up, operationsunlight.com, but you should look up Robert Beadles. I've done many programs with him. One man, single kick-ass warrior force helping Nevada. But again, you got to understand Nevada. Nevada is fueled by tons of illegals to get cheap work, right? Mm-hmm. And tons of drugs and alcohol and stuff. And again, it's this thing between illegals and mafia and cartels, and it has a stranglehold for otherwise what is a red state. Same thing in California. I believe California is a red state. They just won't let it happen.
I want to revisit the illegals here in just one moment, but first, Arizona was the focus of our last conversation on July 4th. Any developments there? Obviously, Katie Hobbs is now governor. Do you see any changes from 2020 happening there?
I can tell you, Arizona is such a disappointment for me. Because I tell people this, you have got to stop judging the system and your lawmakers by the values you have. See, we lay our values over these lawmakers that will just show it to them and they'll do the right thing. Mm-hmm. We got the full forensic audit in Arizona. I'm one of three parts of it. My team's all the digital forensics and stuff, looking at the paper, 41 people that we protect fearlessly. The contract was for $210,000 to look at what had never been done before in history, in excess of 2 million ballots. I developed 24 brand new auditing technologies and techniques to look at elections to expose it all. But for our company, we had to spend a little over $2.2 million of our own money on top of the money that had come in to get to that point. And then, that's been 3 years now. Just the storage of the data in a perfect chain of custody as it has to be kept, we have to keep. It's been over 3 years now, and that cost us $10,000 a month. It's 3 petabytes of information. And this is how the deep state works to break all of us. And so when I think about Arizona, and I think about the lawmakers there that saw every bit of this and knew it and refused to talk about it, right? Mm-hmm. And won't do what's right. And I just got a mega dose in reality. You go in expecting these people to do right, and it is just trash. And do not believe when you hear, I'm a war hero and I'm this and that. It is total freaking crap. And it's disappointing. And that's when I got the real dose in reality of this is about the people. They are only afraid of you. And let me tell you how this works. So in December, right 1 week after the election in 2020, I made it known as a technologist. I've never cared about politics or been involved, and that's part of why we got our ass kicked, because we were all living lives and didn't give a rat's ass about this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Big mistake. So I finally, to the detriment of my technology career, came out and said, I can see exactly what's happening, and we can solve this with technology and look at it, because it's supposed to be the biggest mail-in election ever, and I'm looking at stacks of ballots that are perfectly flat. I know that's against physics, can't be done. So I exposed it. And then just by an interesting happenstance, Arizona has a crack precedent in the system where they might be able to get a hold of the ballots, and they're going to do it. And so the public, the American public, all of you guys pushed and got the full forensic audit in Arizona. You got it, you got it agreed to. Lawmakers were pissed. Behind the scenes, they're working very hard not to get it done. As we're getting ready to hopefully start the audit, and they're delaying, one of the lawmakers, Republican lawmakers, basically said, well, we've decided we're just going to look at a fraction of the ballots. We're just going to look at a few of them. And if we find something there, then we'll proceed. Now, that was not the deal with the American people, right? And so I tell the Arizona lawmakers, then I'm out, because you said you're doing every single ballot, and the only way you can find this is every single ballot. So they actually kind of applauded. Great, we got this techno weenie out of here, right? And I said, but I want to let you know, just like the people told you they want a full forensic audit, which I created every bit of that. They told you they wanted it, and you agreed to it. And now you're going to kind of change the rules at the end. I'm just going to tell the people. They said, fine, go ahead and do that. They didn't give a rat's ass. Within one day, 60,000 people picked up the phone and called the state of Arizona switchboard, and state of Arizona shut down the entire state's switchboard system, saying, you guys said you were doing them all, and you better damn do them all. And the lawmakers capitulated, and we got everything. But then they went into second high gear to try to muck it up, and we won't talk about all the espionage and stuff that went on. The only reason I tell you that story, you're it. You are who they are afraid of. If you were to go into the congressional records before all this started, because you're waking up, but if you were to go into the congressional records, you'd find out that a congressperson may get 10 letters in a year. And they'll deal with it because they think it's big. Now imagine when 60,000 constituents call in. See, that's the difference. They're terrified of you. They're terrified of you having truth and knowledge. It's just like Georgia. We're going to do this special security seal ballot like we just talked about. That is nothing but a placebo effect and a freaking little nipple nurser for you. That's it. But if you don't understand how it connects and how they do this stuff to you, you can't push against it. And so I want you to understand, even as crappy as all of this sounds, you're the one with the power. Now, if you're listening, pick up a pen and paper, because I'm going to give you the formula to absolutely defeat this.
All right.
And if you will follow the formula, and you will be willing to fight for your country with pen and paper, I'm going to tell you right now, you will kick their ass, and they're terrified of you. So I'm going to give you a little more time here. Get a pen and a paper. I'm going to give you a form. You can go back and rewatch the program and everything else. Okay, number one. I'm going to give you what's called the math of damages. Okay? So I want you to understand that a ballot is so much more than a ballot. It's actually a contract, because you are literally affixing your name, signature, and vote that if my person wins, they're going to do what I want, meaning what I'm asking them to do en masse. That's a contract. When the systems in the government extort you and force you into contracts, agreements, or servitude, extortion, and don't represent you, that's federal racketeering. And that's what they're deathly afraid of. And you got to understand the two differences. Somebody who votes dead mama's ballot, right? That's a crime, but that's voter crime. They will always find somebody. They'll tell you we can't connect the ballots, but how do they find somebody who randomly voted their dead mama's ballot? They'll parade that person around, true story in Arizona. They will convict them, prosecute them, give them a sentence or a plea. So they can say, we got 2.5 million voters and there was only one instance of voter fraud. That's why they do that. But when you understand how this is done, it's not voter fraud. It's something different. It's called election fraud, meaning the electors, the systems, the techniques that actually take your vote. And that's federal racketeering. And it's how we brought down the mafia. Here's how you get this solved. And if you will follow my freaking instructions, you can bring this down. Number one, look at how much money from the Biden administration to now has been willy-nilly spent appropriating to the Ukraine and other stuff like that. Go gather that number. It's in the trillions. Okay? You take those trillions of dollars that they've pledged and spent, and you divide it by the U.S. population. You're going to find out, and I'm just doing round numbers here, folks. You're going to find out that this current mail order maladministration, selected, not elected, has financially bound you as an adult, because you know, it passes to your children too, but it's technically only working age people, has bound you to pay an additional $39,000 in taxes to cover it. So now you've got a financial instrument. They have bound you to $39,000 that didn't exist before this mail order selected, not elected maladministration get done. Do the math on that, put it over in a column here. Next, turn around and go to your state. Look at how much your state is spending on illegals, housing them, the medical cost and everything they get, and whatever you can look it up, the impact of the illegals on your state. Okay? You're going to come up with a number that how much they spend to house the illegals and do all of that, divided by the total population of the state. You're going to come up with several $1,000s that it cost you, because now your state has to tax you for it. And then the last little piece you're going to do is you're going to look at your county. Your county has a similar subset of dollars. You're going to get those numbers from the county divided by how many people live in your county. Now you're going to add all these numbers up. Keep track of them. You're going to add them up. And just for shits and giggles, we're going to say you got $60,000 of debt that has been placed on you because of this government. That is your losses for a maladministered government. Then you basically go back and you show where they're not enforcing the law. They're not enforcing the border. They're not doing this. They're letting criminals off. You have to list out your grievances. You follow me? You got to list out all of your grievances. My name is Joe Blow. I live at this address in this city, state, and county. Our elected officials, county, state governments not doing this or not enforcing laws. You list all the laws that are on the books they're not enforcing. And then you say, as a result of this, I have been damaged at least this amount. You got to have that financial number. You got to show how it's financially impacted you and got to be able to call it. Now, what you have here is you basically have a linear proof sentence or a linear proof that basically shows that you have been damaged. Here is who did it, and here is how much you've been damaged. Do not mention fraud. Do not mention any candidate you're for or against. You don't have to name it by candidate. You just say, because of non-enforcement of laws where they took an oath to do, I have now been damaged this much. You do it in the form of what's called a jurat, a legal jurat. That means you and only you, and you get it attested. Basically, you get a notary seal. A jurat means not an affidavit. The GOP tricks you into that. Go to the website, fill it out. Affidavit. It's not admissible in court. They do that on purpose. So when you get a legal jurat, you go down to your bank and get it certified. Now, the reason for a notary is they stand instead of court. It means they are a confirmed court witness that basically says, this is the person, this is their grievance, I read it, they swore to me, they signed it, I'm standing here in front of the court. That basically is the 100% equivalent of standing in a court. And as you know, what they're not doing is they're not letting you in court. So now you've prepared this. And basically what you do is for your county recorders or register of voters, right, or your county commissioners, up to your secretary of states, up to your attorney general, right, up to your governor, you literally send them a demand for payment and a cease and desist because you have been damaged. You got to get on the books personally. Once you've got on the books, if you can get 5 of you together, which I guarantee you can, and all of you have individual claims and have been damaged by basically the same thing, you now have the ability to get immediate restraining orders. And the number one thing is you got illegals coming across the border. You're giving them a social security. You're giving them a driver's license. They're immediately added to motor voter. Make sure you confirm that in your state. And the people, ready? The people assume they're voters. Therefore, you are willfully misleading, don't say illegals, the immigrants you're letting in. And what you're doing is you're turning the immigrants into criminals, and they don't know it. And that's a crime of civil rights against all of these migrants you're letting in. You're turning them into criminals, and you know it. And so, see, what you're really doing is playing both sides of the fence here. What about the illegals? You don't give a rat's ass about the illegals. You want to get on the books. And what they've done is with this push-pull, they have violated their own laws. And just like I told you earlier, they are intentionally creating a way that the illegal can vote. And the illegal said, well, I didn't know I couldn't. By you filing these letters and putting them on notice requires them to respond and inform the illegals, just so which they're not doing. If you get a voter registration card, you know you can't vote till you become a real citizen. And that's what they're not doing. Get 5 of you together. You not only can you get a class action going, you can get a temporary restraining order that any judge in the country, all they have to do is grant you an audience. You don't have to have an attorney to do this. And you can file a temporary restraining order and says, you show me how we know the voter rolls are good and how you're vetting illegals that you're giving Social Security and driver's license to you, and 100% how you know they're not going to vote. And by the way, cease and desist printing these ballots right now because you can't prove they're not citizens.
And once you've gone through all of these steps, who are you specifically submitting this to?
Your county recorder.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have county recorders. Some people have register of votes. Whoever runs your elections. Let's just take Maricopa. You have a county recorder and you have 5 legislative supervisor districts. Those are the supervisors. Then from there, you have the city attorney. Then from there, you have your AG, your Secretary of State, and your governor. Basically, you are showing them they are not only not enforcing law, they are creating a system that's broken that turns normal, honest people. Don't start bitching about fraud. Don't even mention that screwing word. Don't do it. You're saying you are turning normal people into criminals, felons, but which, by the way, can get them deported because you've created an unaudited system that allows this loophole. and this loophole damages me. Here's how much I've been damaged already. That's all it takes. And you file and mass temporary restraining orders. And what you're doing, right? Don't claim fraud. Don't even call them illegals. Call them migrants. And basically show, quote unquote, it's their plan, the unintended consequences. And by the way, you're creating the illusion when they get their voter registration card because of automatic voter. Make sure you're in these states, where they merge them. Cease and desist. And every person that they hide the roles from us of the illegals. You demand as remedy, ready for this? The name and address of every single person is not a citizen that you have issued a driver's license to, that they're going to automatically be registered in motor voter, and at what address you're going to do it. And when they have to turn over that information by court, you're going to find all these common addresses they're using, and you're going to be able to pre-identify how many illegal votes may be coming in advance. But you can basically tell them, you stop the presses right now and stop printing ballots, because you have inadvertently created a loophole that's going to create criminals out of people who are not criminals, and you're going to let them take the bait in the fall. That's how you do it. It's very easy.
I like it. I like it a lot. Hey, can we stay on this topic real quick? Because
which one?
I have some questions here. Talking about the illegals that
Sure.
are getting these ballots or getting
Right.
On the rolls. What I want to address before I put this question up here, it references a show you do in the morning. Please tell everyone where they can find what you do online. As far as presentations like
rumble.com/Jovan Hutton Pulitzer, Jovan Hutton Pulitzer. You'll see it on the screen, no spaces. Jovan like the 70s cologne, but I assure you, when I sweat, I do not smell like that.
That's over.
Hutton, like E.F. Hutton, you should maybe listen to me if you're old enough to remember that commercial. And Pulitzer like the prize, but I'm not. I'm more like the free party gift if you hurry up and order now. So it's rumble.com/Jovan Hutton Pulitzer. I broadcast 7 days a week, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. I give it to you in Central Standard Time because it's 777, just like the jackpot, because we're all winning if we're here together sharing information. So every single day, 7 days a week, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And to boot, we throw in additional content at noon.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So setting that up, here's the question from Dove 1965. Jovan said this morning over on your Rumble show, he figured out about 5 million illegals are voting nefariously.
Will be voting. In this next election, we'll have at minimum 5 million additional votes pouring in that, if we could track them back, are illegal votes.
These are additional to the illegal votes that we already have in the system?
That's correct.
Dear Lord.
And if I can pull it back to the tech side of it, and what you had said, Keith, is, this doesn't mean that 5 million physical people will show up. Certainly some will be. But, let me just see how many people out there are familiar with the e-poll books, right? And that e-poll book is one of the gateways to this entire issue, because that system that we were talking about, the CrowdStrike IDS system, they can see not only the register, how many voter registrations there are, they can see who signed in that day live. And so there's the fungibility that Jovan was talking about. And when you have 5 million plus that are registered to vote, and they know how many people have signed in on election day, and then they can go peek at the registration and find out how many there, where the fungibility is, and how not to break that precinct.
It's net differential. Folks, let me tell you how this works. You know why they want same-day registration? There's no voting. But think about this. On these electronic poll books, like I exposed in Georgia, they were using 6,996 of those poll books in 2020. What they don't tell you is every one of those poll books are connected to the internet. They also don't tell you you can wire them all together, and now you got one big supercomputer. Exactly. You get in one, you see them all. Not only are they connected, but they're constantly watching. And so what they're doing is they're watching, okay, who came in and voted? How close are we in the polls, right? And they're doing net differentiations. Who can vote? Who has vote? Looking for the net difference. You know why they need same-day voting? Is because now they know they need to insert more, and they're about to do it. They drag them right over to the voter file in real time and put them there so they can go, okay, we need this over in this district. And they'll just drop them where they need them. Folks, when you look at these batches, remember in Maricopa, it was 10,435 batches we had to look at. Each batch is an average of 200. When you look at these drop boxes, right? And you probably drop it by your work or it's right in this neighborhood. We should see a big wad from the right neighborhood. No, we don't. We see 200 batches or 200 in a batch. We'll see 5 votes from right where the drop box was, 5 people, 4 from an adjoining neighborhood. And then every other vote, every other of the 191 votes will be 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 for 191 times spread out over the entire Metroplex. It's a physical impossibility. And by the way, when you look at how that's done in the drop box, it's for every mail-in ballot, every election day ballot, and every drop box ballot, because they're constantly sticking them in where they need it, one at a time, in a clockwork process.
And you know, it's very interesting because this is how this all kind of came about. So somebody from Kentucky called me and said, and that person also is familiar with Jovan's work, and said, you know, we've got findings, and it was a similar thing. It was this one-off. But like, unlike Maricopa, where they actually had ballots, in Kentucky, there were one-offs, but there were ballots missing. Now, you remember in 2019, that was an election with Governor Matt Bevin. He lost by 5,000 votes. There are 660, I believe it's 668 individual precincts in Jefferson County alone. That's Louisville. And in the small sample that this group sent me, they were finding this phenomenon, and that's where, you know, a lot of this digging began. And you know, may I mention, Jovan and I have known each other for quite a while. I can corroborate that phone call he got with Arizona where they didn't want to do it, and he said, I am not touching it unless I get the whole thing. I was in the room on that day, and all of these things began, the gears toward discovering all of this stuff. It's just, it really, it's kind of a God thing. But those batches he's talking about, the discovery began on that with a group that was looking at 2019 Kentucky. And now Jovan's got, you know, a treasure trove of how many batches? 10,000?
10,435,000 batches, average 200, but the largest about 9,000 in any one batch.
And you know, and I'm sorry, I keep geeking back to the tech side of this. And if before we quit, I'd love to talk a little bit about Sean Henry with CrowdStrike too. But you know, when you start peeling back the layers of the onion on this system, you know, this Rabbit 5 was a SOAR program. It's artificial intelligence that was rolled out in 2020 in 4 separate areas. We talked about this a little bit in part 1 of our discussions together, but Maricopa County was the only, they were statewide in Massachusetts, Texas. Maricopa County was the only locality that was chosen for that rollout with AI capability.
Let me explain, and tell folks, I want to give you a visual of this, folks, just real quick. If we went back in time and we looked at those 200 ballots, they used to have 1, maybe 2 ballots per 200 that would have a problem and need to be adjudicated. When we get into 2018, it jumped up to about 4 out of 200. That means 1 out of every 50 ballots technically has a problem with it, that the scanners can't read it or that can't understand what to do with it. This AI adjudication that Eve's talking about, they ushered it into Maricopa. Now, what it means is, in the old days, that ballot that had a problem would go to the end of the table. Somebody in the room, because everything took place in one room, would come around and collect those ballots and would go over ostensibly to a Republican and a Democrat, which is not true, look at it with a supervisor, and they decide what the voter intended, and they fix it. This AI version now that they deployed, now that ballot doesn't go at the table. It doesn't come out. Nobody at the table or at the thing knows there's a problem with it. It takes that ballot and sends basically a scan that is the exact digital equivalent to the quality of a 1980 fax machine. You know how great those were. It sends it to a remote building for somebody else to decide. Now, why did they do that? It's because instead of having 12 boxes of ballots at over 2 million that need corrected, if they would have outstacked the ballots from 2024, it would have been 3 pallets almost of ballots, 45 boxes per pallet, 3 pallets. And when all of that stacked up, instead of just 15, 20, 25 boxes, you know somebody would have been screaming, something's going wrong. They adjusted on average, not 1 out of 200 or 2 out of 200, not even 1 out of 50. They adjusted 1 out of every 8 ballots. And that's how they use this AI adjudication. Sorry, Eve, go ahead.
But that's fine. I'm looking at some of the comments, and people want to know if the e-poll mean the iPad. Yes, when you go sign in at when you go sign in your precinct and they flip that iPad over, that is the e-poll book that is on this system.
Yeah, and is an iPad a computer? Of course it is, but they call it a poll book, so you think it's innocuous.
And then somebody else, another question here was, do you anticipate that they're going to do this in 2024? And I'm going to say absolutely yes. And I had mentioned this last time, but this is driving me completely mad right now, because remember, you have to have, in order for them to operate, you have to have the culpability, right? You have to have it you have to have the public buy-in. And Trump was leading far to the whole assassination attempt and everything. The polls were starting to explode. They were going, who knows? I think Jovan and I agree that we still think this is going to be very difficult for Trump to win. However,
it's going to be hard, folks. It's going to be hard.
Yes.
And don't expect it. And whatever you dare do.
Yes. Don't
believe
assumptions.
The polls, and don't rest on your laurels.
The only thing I will tell you about the polls is the polls are your indicator whether they're going to operate. When you see these polls tightening, they will be operating, because that's how they run cover. They have to have the notion, the idea in the public's brain that it could potentially happen that the opposition could win.
It's
so
close,
anytime,
oh my God,
anytime you say within the margin of error, right? If I had the guts to have bet and everything that I have in 2018, whether it was the Kerry Lake or the Ossoff or the Dr. Oz or any one of them, before they even started dropping ballots into the ballot box, I told friends and family who was going to win those races. I was right on 100% of those. And I wish I'd have bet them, because you could tell the way the polls were being handled and you knew these systems were in place. So are they going to operate? Watch the polls. We'll start going to Vegas, folks.
Okay. So I do have some questions that I've pulled. I'm glad you were referencing some of them. This is got a couple here from William I want to get to. I want to get to another one from Dove. William asks, what's the real reason for using voting machines rather than paper ballots? Is it cheaper, faster, more secure, or other? What are they selling to the public now on these, as we have question after question after question with every election?
We had voting issues with machines, changing votes or not recording votes, going back to the late 70s, by the way.
Wow. And
even into the 80s, numerous lawsuits over them. If you want to go look up a issue, want to go look up Vote Scam. That's one book you can get there. Black Box Voting is another one. You can see how it was done. A lot of lawsuits, but that was when not really a machine. You kind of push a toggle. The 2024 scam, Bush Gore, was to convince you it was too hard to tell the little pushy pin things, which said, well, we should do this by computers. And now they tell you they can't count them. It takes too much manpower. They can't do it, need to do computers. It's a racket. It's a racket. And oh, by the way, the same computing device they use, Dell computer, to run most of these, you can go buy right now on eBay for about $312. And they lease to the state for $65,000 a year. And so it's all a racket. But see, in the racket of it's got to be machines, they got to keep on coming out with more levels of machines, more levels of machines, more level of machines to keep on getting big contracts. It's all bogus where it's all crap. And if I could wave my wand, because I could, from a technology standpoint, fix every bit of it, make sure no illegal vote got through, make sure that everything's copacetic, it audits when it does it, and it can be done for about 20% of what our elections cost now. And until we cut out the profitability, it shouldn't be a profit center. We shouldn't have billion-dollar valuation companies running our elections. Until we rip all of that out, we're not going to have it fixed. We got to go back to paper, one day, hand count, et cetera. And by the way, it's got to be about the paper, and they should give the damn machines, if you have to use them, that are neutered, you give them away for free. Period.
And may I add, these companies, once again, I'm going to repeat this till the cows come home. These companies are the EISCC. They are governing these elections. So yeah, we got to get them out of there. But folks, it's going to be so hard. The other thing I wanted to add.
What's that stand for? EISCC.
That is the Election Infrastructure Sector Coordinating Council under the DHS.
So did you hear that, everyone? The DHS is in charge of all of this at the end of the day.
Yes, it is. And I beg people to read this book. It's funny. I went on a vacation and I brought the book with me in preparations for this. And I just pissed myself off when I heard it. But
I want to remind you folks, the book outside the intro is not our words.
Right.
The books are their words.
That's
what
right.
they made up, how they did it, who
opinion.
signed it
These
off, who was colluding on it. It's all their stuff. You can track it down yourself.
Yeah,
it's their
absolutely.
Words. Let me throw another. Oh, go ahead.
Well, let me just add one more thing. Anybody that's got a job, for example, I do multiple things in my life. I won't get into what they are, but when you get a stable version of software on your machine and you're good at using it and you don't really need updates and you don't want to spend the money, it'll last for perpetuity as long as your machine runs, right? Well, when you understand that they continue to get upgrades and they continue to improve and they continue to have updates or whatever, what do you need for that? You need what Jovan was saying earlier. You got to have the vendors, people in the voting locations. There was somebody locally where I live, and they said, come in here and listen to the volunteers, the education and whatever. And the fact of the matter is the volunteers don't really do a whole heck of a lot. They'd raise their hand and they say, well, what do we do about this? Like, don't worry, the vendor will take care of that.
William's got another question here. Is there any way now that elections can be really audited?
Yes. If you understand one thing. Ready? It's not the machines. Right? Let me tell you why. Right now, we're all participating in machines, but what's making this broadcast come to you? A software program on Keith's side, a software program on my side, software program on Eve's side, a software program on your side going through a specific portal. It's not the machine. It never has been. And by the way, on the machine, since it's voluntary rules, there's no enforcement. But everybody that told you it's the machines, get rid of the machines, it's the machines, had no idea what they were talking about.
Right.
Paper and programs. Now, instead of somebody that you're listening to that their previous job before commenting on this stuff was they worked at Taco Bell, yes, I'm telling you the truth. Or you're listening to somebody that was a part-time drug counselor and now they're a political pundit. You're doing the same thing. We know the news is crooked, but you're going to people who don't even have any idea what they're talking about because just you like what they're saying. You got to deal with facts. And the bottom line here is, yes, we can fix every bit of this. And by the way, we've been saying this for years. 75% of it is fixable at the contract level with the vendor. At the contract level with the vendor. You don't need laws. You don't need it. You just need to do your contract right. Go, Eve.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that's absolutely right. And Jovan and I had this discussion earlier. This is something where, again, I had not an interview, but just a regular friendly conversation with an attorney and explaining a lot of the different layers of this. And he said, this is something that sounds like it could find injunctive relief at the state and local level, which is absolutely right, because we have all been saddled and hooked into a system that we don't have to be. And I will speak from my own space and area here where I live. I won't say where I live, but the people that run the system are completely clueless. And when I go to them and I explain to them what the problems are, they say, well, but it's coming from the state, it's coming from the Secretary of State, or it's, I'm just doing what I'm told, and so on and so forth. And you explain it to them, they say, well, I just don't understand it, or I don't believe it. If you can find an attorney to file something, and I'm going to talk to this particular one, injunctive relief for your state or locality, probably start at your locality and say that we're part of the system. We don't want to be a part of the system anymore, and ask the judge to remove your county from the system. That's probably going to be the best way to go.
Look, here's what it is. It is maladministration. You're not running this right. You're not administering the laws right. You are maladministering this. But when you get into it and you see it's a recurring pattern, that moves to the next category, which is malfeasance. When you start looking at the maladministration and you can prove it's repeated malfeasance, what people don't understand, you have the ability to remove that lawmaker. You have the ability to remove that county recorder because it's malfeasance. It's damaging. Here's the damaging, and you're not following your own rules. But they've convinced you don't have that power when you do. So yes, can this be fixed? We could do it with machines. We could completely redo the machines. We don't need them the way they are, but we got to gut the system. Why would anybody think we have billion-dollar voting companies, right? It's not necessary. It's all political payola. It needs to be totally transparent. It should be one-day elections. It should be on paper. It should have systems that can count it, backed up by a hand count. But even with all this hand counting stuff, so let me do this. There are 3,000, and you got to understand unintended consequences here. 3,000, I'm going to shortcut. There are 3,800 counties in the United States of America. Year and a half ago, or maybe more, you heard, go get the cast vote records. Get the cast vote records. People angry picked up the phone and called their county recorders demanding the cast vote records. You're a fraud. You're a treason. You're going to get hung, because nobody taught them. Even the people demanding cast vote records didn't even know there's 6 versions, didn't even know what version to ask for. But because you see it on TV, we're going to get the cast vote records. Here's the net effect of that. 3,800 counties out there, which you could have got the cast vote records. Because of that little promotional effort, half of those counties wrote laws to now forever bar anybody in the public getting the cast vote records.
Yep.
That's the kind of stuff that kills us. Hand votes. We're going to turn the voting machines into prison bars. It sounds nice, but you have a contract that's a multi-year contract with the states that says you must use machines. You can't get around it. Okay, we're going to do hand counting, which is great, which is exactly what we should do. But then there's another loophole. Great, you're going to hand count. Now, out of 3,800 counties, for 24, they're going to hand count 200 counties. Great. But you know what's wrong with the contracts? They're still going to run the machines, and you're going to have a hand count. Can you tell in a hand count which ballot's counterfeit or which one came from an illegal? No, you can't. So you're still going to be counting the same BS ballots. Oh, by the way, the deferentian, meaning who they're going to defer to on the count, is the machine, not the hand, because the machine's written into law.
Yeah, it's certified. Yeah, if you don't, and this is the thing is, and anybody that's working on things, and I've gotten more active in what I'm doing here locally, but if you're going to do anything in the process, and if you're going to, and I'm trying to work with my own, sheriff and county clerk and so on and so forth. But if you come up with a way to remedy this, you need to do it so that your Board of Elections will certify that process. Because if they don't certify the backup process, it will always default to the machine, what Jovan was just saying.
That's right. If you don't do contracts and you don't know it and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to buy into the hoopla. We're going to hand count, but you don't realize it doesn't mean anything. They're just going to placate you. It's not going to mean anything because you didn't get it certified. Because you didn't get it in agreement, that you didn't decide these terms. And we got all of these good-hearted people combined with a bunch of freaking amateurs and it's killing us. It's killing us.
And another thing that I've been, myself, paper poll books, again, these e-poll books, number one, that how many people, whether you sign for a credit card or you sign on those e-poll books, how valid do you consider your own signature? It's garbage. How can that even be a legal binding signature?
Yeah, Keith, do you know how they pre-compromise the signature? We exposed this too.
Tell me.
Okay, ready? They have a little thing called the voter record, and they have this other little thing called voter file. Now, you've probably gone into a DPS and they ask you if you want to vote, and they'll register you, and you sign that little bitty squiggy window. That little bitty window, right? Well, that window automatically truncates your signature. You're already not signing it the way you statistically sign it.
Right.
Well, that should be the only signature that's valid, meaning exactly how you signed on your driver's license, which appears exactly on your voter registration card, which should appear exactly on your ballot. But they created this little hook. And instead of, they call it the voter record, which says anytime and any place they can find your signature, and any variation, they get to drop in the file. And then they get to use the weighted average of all of those. And so if you don't know they're using your signature in an election because they voted your mail-in ballot, you didn't care about it, if they scribble on it, the scribble's now added to the file. And that's what they're doing. And they add all these bullshit scribbles to the file. And when they look at it and go, well, I got a signature and I got a scribble here. So, okay, it looks like this one. And they accept it. It's all a rig.
Yeah,
Okay,
so you have to, people need to, if you want to really try to change things, you really need to get back to paper poll books. You need to have autonomous precincts. Like there's a lot of places after COVID, they went to voting centers, precincts got all mushed together. They printed ballots on demand and they all would scan and they'd turn into a big pile of ballots. And you've got to demand that you have an autonomous precinct. It remains autonomous through the entire process. You have a paper poll book, you have paper ballots, and it can be audited at any point through the system.
Eve, I have two questions for you. One on the screen right now from Jeff. He asks, Eve, would adding the Postmaster General or United States Postal Service Attorney General type position help?
I assume that's in your restraining orders?
I don't know.
Eve.
For Eve, I guess.
I would suggest nothing is going to have any sort of jurisdiction over this DHS system with the EISCC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's another one.
My other solution that I think is, and I'm getting, this is why if we can push this up the Blaze chain a little bit, if we could get a congressional committee set up by an oversight Jamie Comer type of committee on the House side, while we still have control of the House, to set up a pre-election kind of a committee that would basically they'd have to have subpoena power and announce ahead of the election that we are going to subpoena all of the router traffic and we are going to inspect all of the router traffic on demand. We aren't going to tell you where it's going to be from, but they can have a list. And then we're going to reserve the right to audit any precincts or any counties where we find any odd traffic. Going back to Maricopa, 30,000 anonymous incursions, you would have seen exactly where that had come from on that router. That router was under the jurisdiction of the EISCC, of the EI-ISAC, and the DHS.
Through the sheriff's department, who were willingly complying, thinking they were saving your life from the Russians.
Right. And if we had a congressional committee that has subpoena power, because their oversight over everything, and we announce ahead of time that there is going to be audits of router traffic and independent and audits here and there, I think that will help to hopefully kind of tamp down some of this activity.
But I want to give some caveats, and I'm sorry to stomp over there, Eve, but folks, I want to give you caveats in this. They put together a committee right after November 2020 to look at these things. They included the very states that were compromised and the very people, like when I was testifying in Georgia, here's what's wrong. The very people that did it, they have Gabriel Sterling there on that committee. It's kind of like having Iran on the Women's Rights Committee at the UN. You've got to stop doing that. But let me tell you how this game's played, where you've got to be very detailed, and we'll be glad to help you. You can reach out to us. Number one, let's just look at it. We want a paper audit. And you write a generic letter, and they say, okay, you can look at the ballots. And you can do it on this day. When you show up, right, because you don't know what you're doing, when you show up, say, I'm here to look at the ballots. They say, okay, which one do you want? Well, I want them all. Well, you can't look at them all. You got to tell me what box and what batch. They will walk back and get a batch, pull one ballot, and allow you to look at it, but you can't touch it. Or, okay, you're going to work out a full forensic audit. You want to look at all of them. You get ready. You come very close to the day of, and you find out you've got to do it in a closet that's 10 feet by 6 feet. You don't have enough room. You can't even store the boxes. Let me show you the most egregious one I heard. When I came out and said, scan the ballot, check for the fold, it just went nuts. It blew up in 2020, and we're doing it. I kept on hearing in Tarrant County about this woman saying, we're going to audit the ballots. We're going to do a full forensic audit. So I reached out to this lady, and I said, I hear you're doing a full forensic audit. I'd like to hear about it. Well, yes, we're getting the guy who led the forensic audit in Arizona, and we're auditing every one of the ballots in Tarrant County. And I said, you know, we've never met before. Yeah, I said, I'm the guy that did all of that work and created all of that, and we've never talked. And she gave me the person's name, and it's a quote unquote somebody who was running for office, maybe even a former lawmaker, that was saying he was the guy in charge. No, he was a volunteer. And so I said, okay, well, let's just talk through this. And you know, I got patents on this, but I'll be glad to help you. I said, what's going on? Well, we're scanning the ballots at 600 DPI, which is technically correct. We're scanning them. Now, we use photographic equipment, not scanners. And we're scanning them all. I said, tell me about that. How many people do you have scanning the ballots? And when are you going to scan it? She goes, well, we're not scanning the ballots. I said, you just told me we're scanning the ballots. She says, no, the county's doing it for us. I said, let me make sure I got this right. The county is scanning all of the ballots. She said, yes. I said, I want to see a sample of the scan so I know what they're getting. And I'm just going to tell you, I'm very surprised if they're going to scan them for you. Nope, they're going to scan them for us. So I said, I'll call you in a couple of weeks and we'll just follow up. I call her. I said, did you get a sample of the scanned ballot so I can see a sample of it? She goes, they haven't turned them over yet, but they say it's going to be another week. So, okay, I'll call you back in a week. Call back in a week. Well, they haven't turned them over yet. And I said, stop. How long have they been telling you it's going to be a week? About 7 months. I go, okay. Put my foot down. You get and demand one sample scan of them scanning the ballots. Well, a week later, I got one. What she sent me was because in Tarrant County, they don't have a physical ballot. They vote on an electronic machine. She sent me the receipt of the paper, which had a Q code on it, which of course are all my patents. That's 207 patents. All of that works off at reading those are my patents. It's how I got involved in the first place. And she sends this thing to me and I go, this isn't the ballot. She goes, yes, it is. You can see who they voted for. I said, this is not the ballot. This is called the ballot receipt. Oh, I didn't know that. The county did faithfully copy them all. I said, you have nothing to audit. You have told everybody you're scanning the ballots. You're getting the ballots. You've raised money. You don't even have a ballot. And they're copying the receipts from the machines that you're supposed to believe that's exactly how you voted. And by the way, you have nothing to audit because you can't audit those. That's how bad this stuff is. But she had been doing this for the GOP for 30 years.
Oh, no. Okay. Let me
Good money
real
raiser, good money raiser, but no logic.
No logic. Okay, so I have another question from Dove 1965, and I've been meditating kind of on this question because I don't know how you would legally do this, but that's why y'all are here. Let's go back to the 2,000 Mules, the Nesh D'Souza documentary. Talking about placing those ballots all over the place there. And so they take a picture, right? And you've talked about this, Jovan. You take a picture because they got to get paid. Look at all these ballots I put in this box here. Is there a legal way, maybe through discovery? I don't know. At what point would you be able to access these pictures? Is that even evidence of anything?
No, I did a Twitter Spaces called the Dilution Protocol Part 1. I did it. I don't know. My days run together. Might have been yesterday, day before. And I discussed 2,000 Mules and how the case got kicked to the can for the judge. See, showing people coming up to a drop box, dropping them in, which you know is nefarious, but you're calling it fraud, is the problem. You're not qualified to call it fraud. In fact, in elections, it can only be the county recorder, the county attorney, the state AG, the secretary of state, or the governor. They can declare fraud. Otherwise, the only way you get to fraud is to have an investigation, find it, and then have a judge confirm it's fraud. But everybody used this term fraud. And so they kicked it out because everybody kept on using that's fraud, that's fraud, that's fraud. I saw them change the votes on TV. I did many specials on this, so I'm not going to go in. No, they didn't change the votes on TV, and that never was the vote, never has been the vote, never will be the vote. It's statistical projections. But in 2,000 Mules case, looking backwards, they should have educated the public on how close geofencing can be in geolocation and how it's used in law enforcement to find convicted killers and stuff. And they didn't build that up enough. I did programs on it, but of course I can't reach everybody. They should have built that up so people understand it, because the media came out and said it's not valid. You can't get close enough. It might be 100 feet. That means nothing. But yet they used it on January 6th people to put them in prison. Mm-hmm. The other part of it is the left, and it's called the dilution protocol. Think of how many people told you, the full forensic audit in Arizona, it's a fraud. It's just a grift. They're patriots. Don't do that. They're going to go out, all the crap, right? That's called the dilution protocol put into effect. Now, the dilution protocol that happened with 2,000 Mules is they literally, basically, instead of understanding how it really works, it is legal ballots overprinted and illegally obtained, sent to an outside source. They're having people fill them out, and then another person's dropping them up in mass. That's trafficking. But the left said, well, people can take in their families, and that's their family, and ballot harvesting is legal. Well, see, the left changed the dialogue to ballot harvesting. It never was ballot harvesting. It was an illegal ballot cracking operation, trafficking of ballots and using ballots illegally. But because they never pushed back that it's not ballot harvesting, they allowed the dialogue to be controlled. And the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, which I don't trust, basically said, you can't show me that there's any nefarious thing in here with harvesting. Nobody got paid for it. You can't even show they got paid. And we have ballot harvesting. We don't see a crime. Now, let me tell you about the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. They worked in 2018 to work with the state to make sure that the midterm elections were safe and secure for several million people. And so they also supervised a risk limiting audit. How many ballots did they look at for several million people? 25. Good Lord. How do you look at 25 ballots and lay it over 2.5 million people? You don't. That's the rig of risk limiting audits. You can't find anything. The other part of it is they even came in. We don't see anything illegal here. It's all broken. They don't even know what they're looking at. They wouldn't. Here's a ballot. You can see people voted it. And what they do is they wow them with procedures. Okay, the ballot came in. You can see it on the poll book here. We scanned it in, and it went over here, and you can see it. It counted right. All the words are rigged. When they said we did a hand recount, what does that mean? They took all the receipts from the machine, and it said how many ballots went in. They recounted those numbers off the little gas station tape and said that was a recount. Was that a recount? No, you're thinking they're recounting the votes. It's total bullshit. The other part of it is, okay, we're now gonna hand count every ballot. Well, you think they're gonna look at every vote? No, they're not. They take the ballots out of the packets. They run them through a paper counter, like a dollar bill counter. And if they said 1 million people vote, they better have 1 million pieces of paper. That was a recount. It's all rigged. And the bottom line is they keep people ignorant of this stuff. The lawmakers don't even know. And then you have all these people out there, whoever donates the most money or gets the most TV time. No, we're going to do it. Full forensic audit. It's a grift or whatever. And they changed the dialogue, just like they did for 2000 Mules, got hit by ballot harvesting and never was ballot harvesting. And they couldn't get past that hurdle. Now, I think they should have released, hey, they're going to these 29 or 30 locations. They're obviously picking stuff up and they're doing this route. They should have actually published that and basically said, we don't know what's going on, but why do people go to 30 places? And why are all of these 30 places NGOs or volunteer organizations? Do you think everybody and families took their personal family ballots to the volunteer organization and then said, my family's going to come and pick it up from you here? They didn't release enough information. They maybe played it a little too safe.
Yeah.
And I think I are on the other side. I'm going to tell it like it is. Damn the lawmakers.
Mm-hmm.
I work for you, not the lawmakers, and you should know because it's you that has to push back. So I would have released more information.
Right.
May
Okay.
I make a comment on the GBI there? I'm just, while he's looking at this, I always go back to the book and piss myself off, but pages 294 to, let's say, round about 300, the GBI, the EA. So there was a thing called the EA project that came out in the Durham report. That was a DARPA project that basically what it did was they worked to decrypt the payload of internet traffic. And once that was done, that was handed over to the GBI and the GII stack, and they were off to the races with it. And there's plenty of testimony on those pages as to how they used that. I mean, it's all of this stuff is so insidious and so deep. And at some point, if I could talk about Sean Henry, the president of CrowdStrike Services.
Oh, good. I was just about to ask you about that because I know you wanted to revisit CrowdStrike. Please do.
Yeah, well, so Sean Henry, and I will speak from, without naming names, I know somebody that has had direct professional contact with Sean Henry. And the thing that's interesting, okay, Sean Henry's past is with the FBI. He rose up to the ranks to basically become deputy director of FBI Cyber. During the whole Einstein project as it's growing into Albert, Sean Henry just decides after winning an award and everything else that he's going to resign from FBI. But 3 weeks later, he's the president of CrowdStrike Services.
And he was FBI assistant director at the time?
I believe, like deputy director, correct.
Yeah, deputy director, sorry.
Yeah. And it won a prestigious award, and I forget who bestowed, I think it was Comey actually nominated him for it. But what's interesting is that inside CrowdStrike, in his own testimony, he talks about the litany of people that work inside CrowdStrike, from the CIA, former FBI, so on and so forth. But the person that I know that had professional contacts with him, it's not like he left the FBI and went to CrowdStrike because he needed a big professional change and it was just time to let my personal public work go because I need a break. Every time you would talk to this man on a professional level, he would never fail to remind you that he was FBI. And it was just kind of an important asterisk, I think, to mention about him.
Which, by the way, the FBI agent who first blew the whistle on Comey that the FBI was bad, that it was running operations off books, that stuff illegal was going on. I know the agent personally. And that person that first went on record and did it, not only did they boot her from the FBI and called this before the election that Comey was bad, she cannot get a job anywhere in law enforcement anymore. And when she even gets job like special protection assignments and they find out, they call the employer and get her booted. And the last one, she was living in a tiny apartment trying to make ends meet, working at a Lowe's as a cashier, and they even called there to make sure they booted her. The person who blew the whistle.
Good Lord, that's horrible. But Colonel John Mills, and I'd like to thank Jovan for connecting me with him on a couple of occasions. This man, I mean, and he's got a book and several interviews, and what a patriot this man is. And I think he's in Virginia. Am I right, Jovan? Working on a lot of the stuff in Virginia. So there is hope in Virginia. But if do we have a minute? Can I just read this one paragraph from this London incident? Because I hear this in my brain all the time when I hear this stuff going on with CrowdStrike. Again, we're led to believe that these heads of these companies are these, they're squeaky clean. They've got the shareholders, interest number one. And what was interesting is General Mills is over there on an information sharing, actually, for meetings or whatever, which, as I'm discovering information.
Overseas.
Yeah, overseas. I thought it was very interesting that these names come up. But so this paragraph is just quoting an interview from Colonel John Mills, and he says, so he's overseas in London, and he recalls he says here that he was at meetings regarding information sharing. He describes a dinner, one attended by globalist dignitaries, many from intelligence communities. And he recalls it's kind of the typical format, in an evening where the attendee introduces themselves, they hand around a microphone, and you stand up and you address the group. And he said when the microphone was passed to, and he wouldn't say who it was, but we identify him as Sean Henry. There's no other individual that this could be. The incident was described in the following terms. So Mills says this: in the serendipitous but incredibly important meeting on a plane going to London in early October of 2016, where I met a very senior former FBI official who then retired and worked and still works for a cybersecurity company. He was unclear and really wouldn't share why he was there. I would also, even more serendipitously, if there's such an expression, had a dinner with him. And I didn't even know, even after being on the plane with him, that at that dinner, he had a meltdown because we would all go around the room and tell people what our passions were. And he said, quote, "We are going to show and prove Trump is a Russian asset." You've got to remember, that's the end of quote. We have got to remember, this is early October 2016. This is a dinner party essentially filled with people that you would call globalists and elite. Mills says, I was not one of them, but I was invited because I knew several of the people. I was a Trump supporter, probably one of the few. But when this former senior FBI official, who I trusted and known for years, been at many meetings with, helped provide security for me when I was on a sensitive overseas trip, most people had no idea what he was talking about in October 2016, because one, everybody felt Hillary was going to beat Trump, and two, the Russia story was really not even a known thing at the time.
He let the cat out of the bag in advance of what they were going to do.
He said he was very curious, had an absolute meltdown. And when you understand in hindsight, and then, so Mills is involved at that point. Understand that is October. Then you get the election happen. Then you get the order in December. The Obama administration and Jay Johnson, everybody want this ICA, this intelligence community assessment. And it's completely fabricated. It's Comey, it's Brennan, and it's all these guys making these stories up. We've got Sean Henry, all of these people going directly to Obama. They put it in front of Mills. They asked him to do a assessment on it. He says, I cannot corroborate this. And they said, don't worry about it. at the end of the day, I said it earlier, this went directly to Obama with Obama's orders, tell me how we can secure these elections. And so every single time at that point forward that there was any testimony given to the sensitivity of elections, or it's always Russia, the Russians were hacking our elections, it was always driven to this Albert sensor, this Albert system. I mean, to an insidious, like it's crazy. Like I said, I get so angry when I reread this. It's a chain of executive orders that gets it done, and I mean, I just don't know what else to say.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, here's the book. If you too want to be infuriated with how your government is really run. Countdown to Chaos. I mean, this thing is.
If you want to have the names and when, if you want to know who and the names, look it up for yourself. All the executive orders put in place, folks. It's their words, their facts, how they did it.
Well, and Keith, and I think I can say this too because I think we handed over a lot of these links, and I don't have the Kindle version. Were the links hot in the Kindle version, Jovan?
Yes.
Some of these spaces and places have now been removed. Keith, if you remove, the source on this, you could probably go ahead and make, Jovan, can he make the list of sources public now?
Yeah.
To his viewers, as long as he takes.
This out.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
We'll
The other thing we could talk in generalities about, I don't want to talk about it in too many specifics, but Jovan, you know this too. We emailed Keith something that was found. It's mentioned in the book, just in passing. But Keith, did you get the email of that very odd website, that buried website?
Yes.
I don't want to speak in.
I printed it up. I've got it.
We
right
even
here.
found the buried website where they would communicate with each other how to do these things with instructions, and they hide them in random websites.
Yeah, and I don't want to say too much about it because I mean, it's just one of those things where we couldn't run with it because you don't want to.
You don't want to have that one shut off. Remember, when you publish a book like this, folks, and you publish the evidence, they try to go back and are going to try to cover their things. There's certain things that even to this day we won't reveal, but in discovering the back channels, how it was done, how do they pass the information? And it's kind of what you saw with Kamala today when she went on Steve Colbert's show talking about DC, and 7 times she says, and there's going to be more, and they're not going to stop, and they're not going to stop, and they're not going to stop.
Right.
And it's going to happen during the elections and after elections. And it's right. And I'm telling both sides. That was the threat. She's telling both sides it's still going to happen. She's telling the other side, don't give up. It's treason.
Yes. Yeah. That's the word. That's the word. Can you please, Jovan, for those that missed or maybe forgot some advice that you gave and the last time we talked, which, by the way, if you're seeing part 2 and you haven't seen part 1, and by the way, I have the same sentiment as Joe there. We've all been played for a long time. I can't imagine how America would have been without this crap going on and the trillions of dollars wasted. Amen. I think about that all the time. But something that you had said in the previous episode that others can go and find at youtube.com/@themic. Look for the deep dive playlist. We had a long conversation on July 4th, and you suggested, and please explain it again, what people should be doing on election day and ordering your mail-in ballot and all that good stuff.
3 years ago, we came out with this, and it was a fellow great researcher, great patriot, Roger Fuller. We call it the Fuller FU is the operational name of this. You'll now hear Mike Lindell touting it. Here's how it works. Get on your mail-in ballot list. Now, folks, write down these instructions. If you'll follow them, please follow them, okay? Get on the mail-in ballot list. Ask them to send a mail-in ballot to you. Now, you're going to get that ballot. So you can early vote or you can mail-in vote. Do not open it. Let me repeat. Under no circumstances do you open that ballot. When election day comes around, and we were telling people to do this back in the gruesome Newsom recall. We knew how it was going to work, but not enough people do it. You got to do it. You got to follow the exact instructions. So you're going to have your mail-in ballot. You're going to sign up for it. You're going to get it. Do not vote it. No matter what, do not vote it. Put it in your pocket or pocketbook when you go to vote on election day. Walk in. Depending on the state, they're going to check your ID. And there is a statistical chance that they're going to tell you, I'm sorry, Miss Smith, but we show that you've already voted your mail-in ballot. Don't freak. They just gave you a gift. Don't freak and say, I don't think that's correct. Will you check again? And you make them repeat it. I'm sorry, Miss Smith. We show you've already voted by mail-in ballot. Okay. Then say, well, what do I do? They're going to give you a provisional ballot because, see, they can't keep you from voting. But all they're going to do is basically kind of throw it away, because what they don't tell you is if they have a provisional, but they show something came in before it and was already recorded, that's what they're going to accept. So they're going to give you a provisional ballot. Say thank you. Now, in the interim, getting ready to go into election day, you have programmed into your phone the sheriff's department non-emergency line. Not the police. Not the police. And in case you didn't get it, not the police. Sheriffs actually have jurisdiction to deal with this. So you're going to step aside like you're going to vote the provisional ballot, and you're going to dial the sheriff's department. And you're going to call the sheriff's department and say, I want to report identity theft. I'm at a retail location. What's the operative word there? Retail location, not a voting place, because you're at a retail location is what it is. And I have discovered somebody has stolen my identity right in front of me, and I can see it, and I'm here, and I want a deputy to respond. I want to file a report. They'll send out a deputy. You will tell the deputy, they are saying I voted by mail, and I did not, so somebody has stolen my identity. The deputy will go talk to the person in charge. Now, the formula you've done is you've asked this person twice. They've told you the same thing. They're going to give you a provisional. At that point, say, could you just get your supervisor to confirm this? You need that additional person in loop. I just want to hear it from your supervisor. Supervisor is going to look at it and say, yes, Miss Smith, it says you voted by mail. That's when you take your provisional and walk away. Now you've called the sheriff's department. The sheriff is going to come back. The deputy's going to come back and say, well, they say you've already voted. They're giving you a provisional. At that time only, reach into your pocket or pocketbook and pull out your mail-in ballot and say, here is my mail-in ballot. See my name on it? Here's my driver's license. Notice it's not open. I did not vote my mail-in ballot. Somebody has stolen my identity, and I want to file a report right now. They're obligated to take that report. Now, you haven't said anything about stealing an election or fraud. Stay away from those words. You haven't said F Joe Biden. You haven't done any of that. You've said somebody stole my identity. By claiming stolen identity, you've put it square in the shoulders of the sheriffs that has the right to investigate. Do not, remember I said, don't open that ballot. You got to show them it unopened. Unopened. You do not let them take it from you. You do not let the election people say, well, we need that ballot. No, it's your property. It was mailed. It is now your physical property. You have full right to vote it or not, period. Do not surrender it. And you tell them, this is my evidence. I haven't voted by mail. And this evidence is staying with me until at the time I can either get in front of a judge or get in front of court. So it's not being surrendered. You can record I have it. Your body camera is going to see it. Here it is. But it ain't leaving me. What you've now done is you've opened a possible criminal investigation into ID theft. And you've put it right in the hands of the sheriff, that the sheriff actually has the ability to seize the machines and to seize all the ballots that are coming. He can do anything. Now, don't think the lady that checked you in had anything to do with it. These people that are running the elections, been doing them for a year, your election supervisors, they have no idea. This is not done at their level. Mm-hmm. So don't take it out on them. They have no idea. This is all done behind the scenes. But maintain identity theft. Don't cuss, don't yell, don't scream. But what you're doing is you have now created a chain of effect where you've got double validation from the first person that told you, the chain of command from the chief election person telling you this, you've got a sheriff involved, and now you've got an incident report for identity theft. And that's a whole different crime that can be investigated at the local level. Now, here's why you don't use the word fraud. Remember how many people told you on TV, it's fraud, it's fraud. I saw the fraud, fraud. They changed the vote. It's fraud, and we're going to melt the machines. I want to let you in on something. When it comes to elections, even though they're state elections, when you assert the charge of fraud, it immediately takes it out of the state jurisdiction and it bumps it up to the Department of Justice. That means it goes to Merrick Garland. And part of the crap you were fed in 2020, the misdirection, the dilution effect, is getting everybody to say election fraud, election fraud, election fraud. Now, Tammy B says this doesn't sound like Tam B says doesn't sound like a good idea to do. Okay. Then don't do it. You have an interesting thing as a human. It's called free will. If you want to walk in and be told you already voted by mail and go, no, I didn't, and think your provisional vote is going to do something for you, great. It's not. But if we get people on the mail-in and we show those things are rigged, we can get rid of the mail-in ballots. We can get rid of the databases and we can clean it. Period. This is how it's done. And it's not meanwhile you don't get the vote. Tam, that is 1,000% incorrect. 1,000% incorrect. They cannot forbid you to vote by law. Period. You're still going to have your provisional. You're still going to vote it. You're going to now have it on record. You're going to confirm they accepted that provisional because you have mail-in ballot. And if they tell you can't vote, bend down and kiss their feet because they just violated state and federal law and made it a slam dunk. I hope they tell you, nope, now you can't vote.
I love it. All right. Well, we've covered so much today, in addition to the 3.5 hours we did back on July 4th. Is there something that y'all have been itching to discuss here today that you want to get off your chest and share with everybody? Eve, I didn't know if you had any other points that you wanted to make sure you got in today.
I think I got basic. I didn't want to get too down in the weeds. I mean, there is so much in the book, like we've all said. Highly encourage everybody to get it and read it. One thing that I was interested in, and it bears more investigation, but when this CrowdStrike thing happened this week, people had brought up the ownership of CrowdStrike is Ukrainian, which I've not really dug into or got into horribly deeply. But what is in the book, what is very interesting is that the FBI and CrowdStrike never had a matching version of the image of the DNC server, which goes all back to the whole Russia collusion hoax. When you read that in the book, pay very close attention to the details on that. They get into what's called hashtags, which hash values, not hashtag, hash values, which demark whether something has been changed in the at the level where things are stored on your computer. And it was a very interesting exchange that Sean Henry had in congressional testimony. He actually had to have a sidebar with his attorney at that point. because the hash values between the FBI and the and CrowdStrike they were different, and that was not ironed out.
That means, folks, the footprint electronically was altered.
Correct. And so, again, the fact that there's a Ukraine connection that goes beyond the scope of this discussion today and the book. However, this is a place where people can go and begin doing your own research, pay very close attention to the details in the book. But, and I think, again, let's just focus on solutions, because I think that was one thing that your listeners last time made very clear. People are like, this is so depressing. There are solutions, and if I could make them very, very simple, yes. Start now, right now, press for paper poll books. Now, where I live, they said it's too late. We've got what we got for 2024. Then then volunteer, get on protectthevote.com, I think is the one that they're pushing everybody to become a volunteer. I think if we can do as a group of Blaze listeners and followers and watchers and, people in Jovan's community, if we can push this up bigger food chains and get it in front of louder voices, I think this idea of getting a congressional committee ahead of time, not a post, J6 or post J13 committee. I'm talking a committee arranged right now with eyes on the system. I think that's a decent
true
thing.
Experts.
Yes, true experts. And
true
Jovan, I think
not big donors or whatever, true experts.
Correct. And if it's a congressional committee, listen, there are people on both sides that have complained about election integrity. And, it'd be fun to kind of get, both faces on each side, going after the same information. And then the injunctive relief, I think, was one of the most effective suggestions the attorney had given me. And an injunctive relief is basically where you show harm and you show that, the relief happens when you have a judge remove the harm. The harm in this situation is the IDS, the so-called security system. And, and this may be a way to get onto paper poll books. They'll say, well, we can't take off the e-poll books because they're secure. And how are we going to secure our elections? We'll print the paper poll books then. They're more secure than anything else there is. Force it through your injunctive remedy.
Absolutely. For me, as I think about all of this, man, there's just so much to talk about. And Keith, thank you not only for doing this and coming back for more punishment, but I just want to thank you for having the courage to do it and having the courage to do it for your audience. As far as just things to get off my chest, and I've thought about this a lot because there's just so much, and it will wreck you, it'll eat you, but it's good to get it off my chest. But I want to let you know, I saw the Mamma Mia musical 3 times. And the second and third time, I went to the back of the auditorium way high up, and I actually danced during the musical. And I've been wanting to get that off my chest for a long time. Thank you.
I'm so glad that you shared that with the group. I believe that is step 13. Admit that you have danced in public at a movie theater.
Mamma Mia is really good.
I've never seen it. Maybe I should.
You should. I really should. It's not just a joke. It's a true fact.
Okay.
It's a great
cool.
musical.
I love that. I want to put another comment up here because I'm very interested in this. I want to give you a chance. I don't know anything about this. I want to give you a chance to discuss this. Jeff S. asked Jovan about his meat, non-GMO home delivery beef. Is that?
We have a program out there that's called nevereverbeef.club. Nevereverbeef.club. And here's what we do. They're slipping in mRNA even into our food supply. And it's becoming mandatory in all of the meats and stuff out there. If they can't get you with the shot, they're going to get it into the food supply.
I know, man.
So what we've done is in our group organization, as part of a banner organization, we have controlled the herd for 30 years. Wow. The herd doesn't have antibiotics, doesn't have growth hormones, has never had mRNA vaccines. the herds and we've got 65,000 mama cows. And by the way, our herd is so pure that a bull will go for $500,000 or more. But anyway, for 30 years, the genetics have been controlled on this. They've never had any of this stuff. We don't do it. And if a cow gets sick, of course, we'll give them antibiotics to take care of them, but we get them out of the herd immediately. They're not kept. And they free range on grass. So they're grass fed, all in the high country, Montana's, Wyoming, all over. The calves stay with their mama for the full first year of their lives, raised very humanely, great lives. And then they're brought down by the ranch hand out of the mountains to the facility. They're fed, getting ready to go to the factory. They're fed with grains and stuff that we grow right there that are not genetically modified or anything. And then, of course, they go into the processing plant, which we own and control, and wrote several $100 million check to do it. And so you're getting the best quality beef there is. However, you're used to going into Walmart or other places, and what you're really getting is what's called standard beef. Most people don't really get prime or the true prime that's there. You're used to a lower grade of meat. It's actually ridiculous. Everything we do is prime, literally in bulk, but we go the extra step. The reason you pay in restaurants huge prices for steaks is because they're aged. Automatically, when we process them, we age them 21 days. That's a very expensive process of aging them. That's packed up for you. You get delivery right to your home. You've never had a steak or beef or even hamburger like this in your life. I can tell you, I grew up with cattle until this process was revealed to me, and I did it. I never had it. Like, oh my God, this is what a steak should taste like. But it's all outside the system. We're not controlled by anything. We're not controlled by the big conglomerates. There's not any mRNA in it. And it's cheaper than ButcherBox. And ButcherBox, a lot of it comes from overseas, and they absolutely put in the mRNA, and we refuse to do that. And it's part of the protection you have to do to protect your food supply.
Thank you. All right. So that is nevereverbeef.club. I wanted to ask you that because that comment really intrigued me. I've been holding on to that for a couple of hours.
Well, that's what it is. You got to think, I don't know if you know this, but besides the book, I just put out this thing called Food Forest Bible. This is the hard copy, right? And so this is 544 pages. It's full color, super high def. Basically what a food forest is, everybody knows how to plant a garden. You should do this when you get your land. You can plant a garden one time, right? And then you got to keep on working and toiling at it. This is a biblical technique that basically you plan out, and it doesn't matter if it's your side yard, your backyard, or acreage. It'll work for all of them. You do it in a way that you pick it between 8 layers and you do it. It actually creates this microclimate center, right?
Oh.
And you won't have to weed. You don't have to dig. It will regenerate. And as you plant it right and get it going, it will feed your family, not for a season, 50, 60, 70, 80 years. In fact, the oldest food forest in the world has been going for 4,000 years, feeding a village. And what we did is we collected all that ancient information. We put it in here. And an interesting part about it is none of us like, and we show you how to plant them out in the whole bit, but none of us like the BS bugs in the garden. Well, you might run across a bug like this in your garden, and you look at it and you see its tentacles, and you go, "Die, bug!" Right?
Guilty.
Well, we all do it. We teach you what plants to plant together. We show you which one of these bugs you want to attract because it eats the mites that eat your squash and potatoes, and we tell you how to attract them so you don't use pesticides. We even go down to how you actually bring in the assassin bugs. That's what they're called.
Yes. Okay. Now I'm on board.
And so that's it. It's called the Food Forest Bible. It's a sustainable way to control your food. And by the way, if you understand what's happened to us, you're going to have to do it. Just like Countdown to Chaos, it also became a bestseller. You can get hardback, you can get paperback, you can get ebook. I made it in hardback, and this is an all-color book. You got to understand, this is all in color. And the reason is because we teach you how to lay these things out and even design it with your family. This is an heirloom coffee table book, but you want to take this out to your garden. We teach you, identify the plants, identify the bugs. Wow. Here it is. And I'm telling you, when I get off the air in the morning, my business clothes shut off. I'm in the garden and I am loading up nonstop on what it is. And you basically get to the point as you plan this out, It doesn't matter what environment you live in, and it doesn't matter what time of the year it is. It's always producing food for you and your family.
Oh, and I have to, can I interject? Because I did get to do a tiny little bit of editing and helping on this thing. And it is got to be one of the most beautiful books you will lay your eyes on. And my husband does a bit of gardening and stuff. And we're still waiting for our autographed copy.
You know what, Eve? I'm telling you, Eve, I just realized that we haven't done that. That'll be taken care of the moment I walk out of here. It's beautiful. It is a beautiful. Beautiful.
It is a gorgeous.
Book.
It is a gorgeous book. That was a fun project, I will say.
That's awesome.
Eve, I want to apologize to you.
What?
But you are right, and that is my failure. And I love you dearly, and you are so important in my life. And I want to tell you, it is no bearing that I didn't personally get that out to you, and I will correct that within minutes.
That would be awesome, because next time I edit anything for you, I'll put some nasty Easter egg in it if I don't get mine.
Don't forget the book that we have been basing our two conversations, the July 4th one and this one today, Countdown to Chaos, has so much information in it. Please,
it's all the same protection. You got to cover yourself in every aspect, folks, whether you like it or not. And even you think, well, why is he doing a gardening book? Let me tell you this. If the system goes to hell in a handbasket, they're already burning down our food supply. Don't you need to know how to do it? You bet your bippy. Even if Trump gets in, it's going to take a while to fix.
Yeah.
But you still need to know it. So in case it happens again, you don't get caught. It's really simple.
Yep.
I hear you. Don't forget the Rumble show, rumble.com/ all one word, Jovan Hutton Pulitzer.
Right.
And I really appreciate all of the information and the knowledge that both of you have shared in these two episodes. And I'm sure we're going to have to do this again. So
everybody listening, get on the email to Pat Gray and to Glenn Beck and barrage them.
Yeah. And I've got some people in the business, other top level shows that I'm going to need to share these with as well.
Folks, you have to understand the disinformation. It's called the dilution effect. As soon as we started coming out with this information, you get blackballed. And they tried their best not to get the word out. And just like you folks are what got the Arizona audit, not us, you reached out. We got to do the same thing to get this information out. And by the way, Joe says Glenn Beck never covered the election crimes. That's great. He doesn't have to, but he can cover what's broken in our elections and what should we be focusing on. And
that's a bit of a false statement, though, because Glenn has covered a few things in the last. And this is what I want to end with this because I'll drop out of here. But he had a Wednesday night special, and he focused on the SCOTUS Kerry Lake case. And he had somebody look at exactly what they had identified. They said, yes, it's real. Yes, it's worked. Yeah, it works. It's a man in the middle, basically set up. Yeah. And now we've identified the man in the middle. So I'd be very careful on disparaging Glenn Beck. He has actually, done some good work.
And you get, look, folks, we name names. We give him the documents and signatures. Same the recurring stuff. We show you how it works. The man in the middle has been exposed.
Yep.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so I think that is it. Again, thanks to everybody for their great questions and for hanging out with us. I will pin, if you want to go and follow me on Twitter, if you're not familiar with it, at Keith Malinak, it's right there. I'm going to pin both the July 4th conversation that we had, the part 1 of this talk. I'm going to put that up there along with this so that you can have both the Twitter links and the YouTube links, whichever is easiest for you. I hope you will I hope you will share. This is very important. In fact, it's critical for the survival of this nation that we get this solved, quite frankly. So thank you both. Thank all of you for joining us. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and we'll see you again tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern with the Friday live stream, and we'll watch animal videos together. Okay. How about that? All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me. We'll see you soon.